A single text message. That's all it took to shatter the careful distance between a struggling single father and the most powerful woman in Boston's corporate tower. Daniel Harper never imagined that Elena Whitmore, the untouchable CEO who commanded boardrooms with ice-cold precision, had been watching him too. But when her private Christmas wish list landed in his phone by mistake, revealing a secret longing that mirrored his own hidden feelings, everything changed. One accidental message, two guarded hearts, a choice that could destroy both their careers or give them everything they'd been too afraid to want. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this journey travels. The Harrington Building's 42nd floor had been transformed into something out of a winter fantasy. Crystal chandeliers scattered light across polished marble floors, while floor-to-ceiling windows framed downtown Boston like a living postcard. Snow fell softly against the glass, each flake catching the glow of 1,000 city lights below. White roses and evergreen garlands draped every surface, and a string quartet played something classical and forgettable in the corner. Daniel Harper stood near the dessert table, holding a glass of champagne he hadn't touched, watching the party unfold around him like a movie he wasn't really part of. He'd almost skipped tonight, almost texted his regrets and stayed home with his daughter Maya, building gingerbread houses and watching Christmas movies they'd already seen 3 times. That would have been easier, safer, more honest about where he actually belonged in the world. But his colleague Jennifer had cornered him at his desk that afternoon, insisting he needed to show his face. "You can't hide forever, Danny," she'd said, using the nickname only she still called him. "It's the company Christmas party. Everyone goes, even the hermits." So here he stood, 34 years old, wearing his only decent suit, the navy one he'd bought for his brother's wedding 4 years ago, trying to look like he belonged among Boston's financial elite while feeling like an actor who'd wandered onto the wrong stage. Daniel had worked at Whitmore Capital Management for 6 years. 6 years of arriving early, leaving late, keeping his head down, doing solid work that earned him steady raises and zero attention. Exactly how he wanted it. He managed risk assessment portfolios, crunched numbers that helped wealthy people become wealthier, and collected a paycheck that covered Maya's school tuition and their modest apartment in Dorchester. He was good at his job, maybe even very good. But he'd never been ambitious in the way this world demanded. He didn't network at bars after work, didn't golf with executives on weekends, didn't angle for promotions that would require sacrificing the carefully balanced life he'd built. Because Daniel Harper had learned the hard way that stability mattered more than dreams. "Harper, there you are, you magnificent hermit." Daniel turned to see Marcus Chen approaching, grinning widely, already loosened tie suggesting he'd been enjoying the open bar. Marcus worked in mergers and acquisitions, thrived on chaos, and had somehow decided years ago that Daniel's quiet nature made them perfect friends. "I'm not a hermit," Daniel said mildly. "I'm just selectively social." That's exactly what a hermit would say. Marcus grabbed a chocolate-covered strawberry from the table. "Have you talked to anyone besides me tonight?" "The evening's still young. It's 10:30. You've been here 2 hours. Marcus studied him with the particular insight of someone who'd known him too long. "You're doing that thing again." "What thing?" "That thing where you stand in the corner analyzing everyone like you're writing a research paper instead of enjoying yourself. This is a party, Danny. You're supposed to mingle, drink, flirt with someone from accounting." Daniel smiled despite himself. "I don't flirt." "I know, it's tragic." Marcus popped the strawberry in his mouth, then gestured across the room with his champagne glass. "Speaking of tragic, our fearless leader looks about as thrilled to be here as you do." Daniel didn't need to ask who Marcus meant. Even in a room full of Boston's business elite, Elena Whitmore commanded attention without trying. She stood near the windows talking to the CFO and 2 board members, wearing a black dress that was somehow both perfectly professional and devastatingly elegant. Her dark hair was pulled back in a way that emphasized the sharp intelligence of her features. She held a wine glass but hadn't drunk from it. She smiled at something the CFO said, but it didn't reach her eyes. Daniel had noticed these things about her for longer than he cared to admit. 4 years as CEO, Marcus continued, oblivious to Daniel's silence, and I've never seen her actually enjoy one of these things. She shows up, plays the role, says the right words, and disappears the moment it's acceptable. You know what I heard? Someone in legal said she literally schedules these parties like board meetings. Arrives at 8, makes the rounds, leaves by 11 every year. Maybe she has better things to do, Daniel said quietly. Yeah, like what? She lives for this company. Work is her whole life. Marcus paused, then added more thoughtfully. Kind of sad, actually. All that success and nobody to share it with. Daniel said nothing. He'd learned long ago that certain observations were better kept private, that some people were meant to be admired from a distance, like art in a museum you could never afford to own. Anyway, Marcus clapped him on the shoulder, I'm going to find Jennifer and convince her to dance. You should do something besides stand here looking contemplative. It's Christmas, Danny. Live a little. As Marcus disappeared into the crowd, Daniel allowed himself one more glance across the room. Elena had moved away from the board members now. She stood alone by the windows, looking out at the city below with an expression he couldn't quite read. For just a moment, the careful mask she always wore seemed to slip, revealing something underneath that looked almost like loneliness. Then someone approached her, a silver-haired investor whose name Daniel couldn't remember, and the mask slid smoothly back into place. She smiled, extended her hand, became exactly who everyone expected her to be. Daniel turned away, setting his untouched champagne on a passing waiter's tray. This was the truth he'd accepted long ago. Elena Whitmore existed in a different stratosphere. She was the CEO of a firm managing billions in assets. She'd been featured in Forbes, Wall Street Journal, Boston Magazine. She gave keynote speeches at conferences and sat on charitable boards and moved through the world with the kind of confidence that came from knowing she'd earned every bit of her success. And Daniel? He was a single father from Dorchester who packed lunches, helped with homework, and fell asleep most nights reading bedtime stories about dragons and brave princesses. His biggest achievement this year was getting Maya through her anxiety about fourth grade and maintaining his reputation as the guy who always submitted reports ahead of deadline. They lived in different worlds. That was just reality. He checked his phone, thinking about texting his babysitter to check on Maya, when it buzzed in his hand. A new message. From Elena Whitmore. Daniel's heart stuttered. In 6 years working at this company, Elena had never directly messaged him. Their interactions were limited to occasional nods in the hallway, the rare company-wide email, and one memorable elevator ride where they'd stood in silence for 43 floors, while Daniel tried not to stare at her reflection in the polished doors. Why would she be texting him now? He opened the message, expecting maybe a company announcement, a reminder about year-end reports, something perfectly professional and impersonal. Instead, he read, Christmas wish list, private auto for me only. Dark chocolate truffles from that place on Newberry Street. New leather notebook for next year's planning. Weekend in Maine, alone, somewhere quiet. Someone to look at me the way Daniel Harper does, like I'm more than just the title. That cashmere scarf I keep almost buying. One honest conversation that doesn't revolve around quarterly earnings. Daniel read it once, then again, then a third time, his pulse hammering in his ears. This wasn't meant for him. It couldn't be. This was clearly something private, personal, maybe meant for a friend or a journal or, like, I'm more than just the title. The way Daniel Harper does. His name. She'd written his name. Daniel's hands trembled slightly as he stared at the screen. Around him, the party continued. Laughter, conversation, the clink of glasses. But it all seemed to happen at a great distance, muffled and unreal. She had noticed him. Not just noticed. She had been watching him watch her. For how long? And how had he given himself away? He'd been so careful, so disciplined about never letting his admiration show. He'd trained himself to look away when she entered a room, to focus on his computer screen when she walked past his desk, to treat her with the exact same professional courtesy he showed everyone else. Apparently, he'd failed spectacularly. Daniel looked up, scanning the room, and found her still by the windows. She was talking to someone else now, the head of investor relations, but her posture had changed. She looked tense. She kept glancing at her phone. She knew she'd sent it to the wrong person. The smart thing would be to delete the message. Pretend he'd never seen it. Text her Monday morning with some excuse about his phone acting up over the weekend. Let them both save face and maintain the careful distance that kept their worlds from colliding. That's what the old Daniel would do. The Daniel who'd spent the last 4 years building walls around his heart. The Daniel who chose safety over risk every single time. But something about tonight, the snow, the champagne he hadn't drunk, the way she'd looked standing alone by the window, made him reckless. Before he could think it through, before common sense could intervene, Daniel typed a reply. "I never realized you noticed." He hit send before he could change his mind. 3 seconds later, he watched Elena's phone light up across the room. She looked down at it, went completely still. Then, slowly, she lifted her head and looked directly at him. Chapter 2. The Terrace. The moment their eyes met across the crowded room, something shifted in the air. Daniel felt it like a physical thing, a tightening in his chest, a sudden acute awareness of every sound, every movement, every breath. Elena's expression didn't change. To anyone else watching, she probably looked exactly the same. Composed, professional, untouchable. But Daniel saw something flash in her eyes. Surprise, maybe. Or fear. Or something more complicated that he didn't have a name for. His phone buzzed again. "I notice more than people think." Daniel's thumb hovered over the keyboard. Around him, the party swirled on, oblivious. Marcus was dancing badly with Jennifer. The CFO was telling a loud story to a cluster of junior analysts. Someone laughed near the bar. "Should I not have said anything?" he typed. "I can pretend this never happened." The response came quickly. "No, I'm glad you did." Then, after a pause, "This conversation feels impossible in here." Daniel understood what she meant. The party, the people, the weight of titles and expectations. It made honesty nearly impossible. They could text, but words on a screen felt inadequate for whatever was happening between them. He typed, "The terrace?" 3 floors up, accessible by a private elevator, the executive terrace was technically reserved for senior leadership. Daniel had never been up there. Didn't technically have access, but if Elena wanted to meet him there— 5 minutes, she replied. "The code is 4827. Then, I'll make an excuse and leave first. You follow separately." Daniel watched her across the room. She slipped her phone into her small clutch, said something to the investor relations director, and began making her way toward the exit with the practiced ease of someone who'd perfected the art of leaving without seeming to flee. Daniel waited, counting seconds, trying to calm the wild acceleration of his heartbeat. What was he doing? He was a single father. He had a daughter who depended on him, a career that, while not spectacular, was stable and secure. He'd spent years building a life that was safe, predictable, protected from the kind of chaos that came from taking risks on things you couldn't control. And Elena Whitmore was the CEO of the company, his boss's boss's boss. A woman whose decisions affected hundreds of employees and millions of dollars. A woman who could fire him with a signature. This was reckless, stupid, potentially career-ending, but he was already walking toward the elevator. The hallway was empty when he reached the executive floor. Soft lighting, expensive carpet, that particular silence that came from being far above the noise. Daniel found the terrace door and punched in the code with fingers that didn't feel entirely steady. The door opened. Cold air hit him immediately. The terrace was beautiful. Curved glass barriers, heated floors, modern furniture arranged around fire pits that weren't currently lit. String lights were woven through bare tree branches planted in massive planters, creating pools of warm light against the darkness. And snow. Snow falling soft and steady, catching the light, turning the city below into something from a dream. Elena stood at the far edge, near the glass barrier, looking out at Boston. She'd wrapped her arms around herself against the cold. "You came," she said without turning around. "You invited me." Daniel walked closer, stopping a few feet away. Close enough to talk, far enough to maintain plausible deniability if someone found them. "Should I not have?" "I don't know." She finally turned to face him. Up close, without the buffer of distance and crowds, she looked different. Younger, somehow. More uncertain. "I've never done anything like this before. Sent an accidental text to an employee? Had feelings for an employee." She said it simply, directly, like stating a fact in a board meeting. "I don't do this, Daniel. I don't. I keep my professional life separate. Always. It's a rule I've never broken." Daniel heard what she wasn't saying, until now. "I didn't know you knew my first name," he he said quietly. That pulled something that might have been a smile from her. I know everyone's name. It's part of the job. And that's not what I meant. I know what you meant. She looked at him for a long moment, snow catching in her dark hair. I know a lot of things about you, Daniel Harper. You arrive at 7:15 every morning. You pack your lunch instead of eating out. You keep a photo of your daughter on your desk. She's 9, I think, and she has your eyes. You're brilliant with risk assessment, but you never speak up in meetings. You've turned down 3 promotion opportunities because you didn't want the travel requirements. And you look at me sometimes like I'm not the CEO, like I'm just a person. The honesty in her voice made something crack open in Daniel's chest. You are just a person, he said. No one else seems to think so. Elena moved closer, and Daniel caught a hint of her perfume, something subtle and expensive. Do you know what it's like being me? Everyone wants something: access, approval, connections, opportunities. Every conversation is a negotiation. Every relationship is transactional. Even friendships feel like networking. I can't remember the last time someone looked at me without calculating what I could do for them. That sounds lonely. It is. She said it matter-of-factly, like stating the temperature. But it's the price of success, right? That's what everyone tells you. Work hard, climb high, make sacrifices. Nobody mentions that the view from the top is beautiful but empty. Daniel thought about his own life. The opposite of hers in almost every way. Small apartment, modest salary, quiet existence. But Maya's laughter when he picked her up from school. Movie nights curled on the couch. The way his daughter still reached for his hand crossing the street. I'm not lonely, he said. But I understand what you mean about being careful. After my divorce, I built walls. Focused on being a dad. Told myself that was enough. Was it? Most days. He paused. Until I met you. The confession hung in the cold air between them. Elena tilted her head slightly, studying him. When? When what? When did you first notice me? Daniel could have lied. Could have said something vague and safe. Instead, he told the truth. Your first day as CEO, 4 years ago. You walked into the main office for the company-wide introduction, and you looked terrified. Her eyes widened slightly. I wasn't terrified. You were brilliant at hiding it, but I saw it. Right before you started speaking, you gripped the podium so hard your knuckles went white. And I thought, she's human. She's scared, just like the rest of us. I was 31 years old, Elena said softly. The youngest CEO in the company's history. Half the board thought I was too inexperienced. The other half were waiting for me to fail. I was absolutely terrified. But you didn't fail. No. She smiled, genuinely smiled, for the first time that night. I didn't. I proved them all wrong. You did. They stood there, snow falling around them, the city lights spreading below like scattered stars. Daniel knew this moment was fragile. Knew that one wrong word could shatter it. Send them both back to their separate worlds where Elena was the untouchable CEO and Daniel was just another employee who knew his place. But he was so tired of living carefully. Elena? He said her name for the first time, tasting how it felt. What do you want from this? From whatever this is? She looked at him for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was quieter than he'd ever heard it. I want someone to see me. Really see me. Not the title or the success or the power, just Elena. The woman who eats dark chocolate when she's stressed. Who talks to herself when she's working late. Who sometimes stands at her window and wonders if all of this is worth it if there's no one to share it with. Daniel's heart was hammering so hard he was sure she could hear it. I see you, he said. I know. She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. That's why I wrote your name on that list. Because when you look at me, I feel like a person again, instead of a position. You are a person. You're... The terrace door burst open. They both jumped back instinctively as voices and laughter spilled out into the cold. A group of junior analysts stumbled onto the terrace, clearly several drinks past professional, arguing loudly about whether it was too cold for the hot tub. Oh, Ms. Whitmore! One of them noticed her, suddenly trying to straighten up and look sober. We didn't know anyone was out here. We were just... It's fine, Elena said smoothly, her professional mask sliding back into place so quickly, Daniel almost believed he'd imagined the last 10 minutes. I was just getting some air before heading home. The terrace is all yours. She walked past them without a backward glance at Daniel, disappearing through the door and leaving him standing in the snow with half a conversation still hanging in the frozen air. The analysts were setting up around the hot tub now, their voices fading into background noise. Daniel stood there for another minute, trying to process what had just happened. The message, the conversation, the way she'd looked at him when she said, "I see you too." His phone buzzed. "I'm sorry we were interrupted." Then, "This isn't over, Daniel. Not if you don't want it to be." He typed back, "I don't want it to be over. Good. Neither do I." Then, "Go home to your daughter. We'll figure this out." Daniel slipped his phone into his pocket and headed back inside, his mind racing, his heart still pounding. Everything he thought he knew about his carefully ordered life suddenly feeling uncertain and thrilling and terrifying all at once. Chapter 3. The Morning After. Daniel didn't sleep. He tried. Went through all the motions, thanked the babysitter, checked on Maya, asleep, peaceful, her stuffed dragon tucked under one arm, changed into pajamas, lay in bed staring at the ceiling. But his mind wouldn't quiet. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Elena standing on that terrace, heard her voice saying, "I want someone to see me." Felt the weight of that message, those words that had somehow crossed the uncrossable distance between their worlds. By 3 a.m., he'd given up and moved to the living room, making chamomile tea he didn't drink, scrolling mindlessly through his phone without seeing anything. What had he done? The smart part of his brain, the risk assessment analyst who made his living calculating probability and danger, was screaming warnings. CEO, boss, power dynamic, career suicide. What are you thinking? But another part, the part that had been dormant for 4 years, was whispering something different. What if this is real? Around 5, Maya padded out in her unicorn pajamas, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Daddy, why are you awake?" Daniel set down his phone, opening his arms. She climbed into his lap, still warm from sleep, and he held her close, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. "Couldn't sleep, bug. Sometimes grown-ups have things on their minds." "Work things?" "Sort of." She yawned, settling more comfortably against his chest. "Was the party fun?" "It was interesting." "Did you dance?" "No dancing." "Did you talk to anyone nice?" Daniel thought about Elena standing in the snow, telling him about loneliness at the top. "Yeah, I did." "Good." Maya yawned again. "You should talk to people more, Daddy. You're always alone except for me." The simple observation hit him harder than it should have. When had his 9-year-old daughter become the one worrying about his social life? "I'm not alone, Maya. I have you." "I know, but someday I'm going to grow up and go to college and have my own life." She said it so matter-of-factly, like she'd been thinking about this. "And then you'll be alone for real. That's sad." "Hey." He tilted her chin up so she'd look at him. "You don't need to worry about me, okay? That's my job. Worrying about you, not the other way around." "But I do worry." Her eyes, his eyes, Elena had been right about that, looked too serious for 9 years old. "Ever since Mom left, you've been different. Quieter. You don't smile as much." Daniel's throat tightened. He thought he'd hidden it better. Thought Maya was too young to notice how his divorce had changed him, how he'd retreated into himself, building walls and calling it healing. "I smile plenty," he said lightly. "Not the real kind. Not like you used to." She paused, then added with devastating honesty, "I just want you to be happy, Daddy. Really happy. Not just pretend happy for me." He held her tighter, this wise little person who somehow saw through every defense he'd constructed. "I am happy, Bug. I promise." She didn't argue, but he could feel her doubt. They sat there as the sky gradually lightened, Daniel thinking about Elena's message, about loneliness and walls and the difference between existing and living. By the time Maya went back to bed and Daniel started making Saturday morning pancakes, he'd made a decision. Whatever this thing with Elena was, impossible, complicated, potentially disastrous, He was done running from it. He'd spent 4 years playing it safe, building a careful, controlled life where nothing could hurt him because nothing was allowed to matter too much. But Elena had shattered that safety with a single accidentally sent message. And the truth was, he didn't want to go back to pretending. He wanted to see where this could go, even if it scared him, especially because it scared him. Around 9, his phone buzzed. "Are you awake?" Daniel stared at the message from Elena, his pulse quickening. "Yes, making pancakes with my daughter. That sounds nice." A pause, then, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you regret last night?" Daniel thought about his answer carefully. This was important. This was the moment where he either retreated to safety or stepped forward into the unknown. "Not for a second," he typed. "Do you?" "No. But I'm scared." "Me too. What are we going to do about this, Daniel?" He looked at Maya, happily pouring far too much syrup on her pancakes. Thought about the life he'd built that was safe but small. Thought about Elena standing in the snow, lonely despite all her success. "I don't know yet," he typed honestly, "but I'd like to figure it out, if you would." The response took longer this time. Long enough that Daniel started to worry he'd said the wrong thing. That the cold light of morning had made her reconsider. That she'd decided this was too complicated, too risky, too... "I'm sending you something. It'll arrive at your apartment in an hour." Before he could respond, she added, "And Daniel? Whatever happens next, I'm glad it was you who saw that message. I'm glad it's you." The package arrived at 10:30, delivered by a service too expensive for regular mail. Maya watched curiously as Daniel signed for it. "What is it?" "I don't know yet, Bug." Inside was a small box, carefully wrapped, with a handwritten note on top in elegant script. "Daniel, I don't usually do impulsive things. I've built my entire career on careful planning, calculated risks, and strategic decisions. But something about last night made me want to be impulsive. Made me want to see what happens when I stop calculating and just feel. There's a park in Brookline called Holloway Park. I used to go there when I first moved to Boston and felt overwhelmed by everything. There's a pond that freezes in winter and families ice skate there, and it always made me feel like maybe the city wasn't as lonely as I thought. Meet me there this afternoon at 3 if you want to continue last night's conversation. If you don't come, I'll understand. We can go back to being CEO and employee, professional, safe, distant, but I hope you come. E." Inside the box was a snow globe. Daniel shook it gently, watching artificial snow swirl around a tiny scene, a park with a frozen pond, a family ice skating together, and in the background 2 figures standing close, watching. Maya peered at it. "It's pretty. Who sent it?" Daniel looked at his daughter, his wise, worried, wonderful daughter, who wanted him to be really happy, not just pretend happy. "A friend," he said. Someone I'd like to get to know better." "Is she nice?" "I think so. I'm still figuring that out." Maya studied the snow globe thoughtfully. "You should go meet her then. Figure it out." "It's complicated, Bug. Everything's complicated with grown-ups." She rolled her eyes with perfect 9-year-old exasperation. "But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try." Daniel looked at his daughter, then at the snow globe, then at the note in Elena's handwriting. Everything in him that had learned to be careful was screaming caution. But everything in him that had been asleep for 4 years was quietly, persistently, insistently whispering, "Yes." "You're right," he said, making the decision. "I should try." Maya grinned, the first real unworried smile he'd seen from her in a long time. "Good. Now, can we go to the park before you have to leave? I want to test out my new ice skates." Daniel laughed, pulling her into a hug. "Yeah, Bug, we can go to the park." But not Holloway Park. Not yet. He had a few hours to prepare himself for whatever happened when he met Elena Whitmore away from the office, away from titles and hierarchies, in a place where they could both just be people trying to figure out if this impossible thing between them was real. Chapter 4. Holloway Park. Daniel arrived at Holloway Park at 2:45, 15 minutes early, his nerves making it impossible to time it perfectly. The park was exactly as Elena had described. A frozen pond surrounded by bare trees, families skating in circles, children wobbling on uncertain legs while parents hovered close. String lights had been wrapped around the trees, not lit yet in the afternoon sun, but promising magic when evening came. He spotted a bench near the pond's edge and sat down, watching the scene unfold. A father teaching his son to skate, both of them laughing when they fell. A couple gliding past, hands linked, moving like they'd done this together for years. A grandmother helping a tiny girl in a pink coat take careful, shuffling steps across the ice. It was the kind of scene that usually made Daniel's chest ache, with a complicated mix of longing and contentment, grateful for what he had with Maya, but aware of what was missing. The partnership, the shared moments, someone to laugh with when things went wrong and celebrate with when they went right. "You came early." Daniel turned to find Elena standing there, and his breath caught. She looked completely different from last night. No designer dress, no CEO armor. She wore jeans, boots, a cream-colored sweater under a dark wool coat. Her hair was down, falling in soft waves around her face. She looked younger, more vulnerable, more real. "I'm always early," he said, standing. "Occupational hazard. Can't stand being late." "Neither can I." She smiled, and it transformed her face. "I've been circling the park for 20 minutes trying to work up courage to actually walk over here." The fearless CEO needed courage? The terrified woman did. She sat on the bench, and Daniel sat beside her, careful to leave space between them. Not touching, but close enough to feel the warmth of her presence. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the skaters. "Thank you for the snow globe," Daniel said finally. "It's beautiful. I saw it in a shop window yesterday and thought of last night, of us on the terrace." She paused. "Is that presumptuous? To say us, like we're already something? I don't know what we are, but I'm here to find out." Elena turned to look at him directly. In daylight, without the distance of the party or the drama of the terrace, her face was open in a way he'd never seen at the office. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. "Please." "I never learned how to do this. The personal thing. Relationships." She gestured vaguely at the skating couples. "I was always too focused on the next goal, next grade, next degree, next promotion. My mother used to say I was born 40 years old, all ambition, no patience for anything frivolous like dating or friends or fun. Ambition isn't a flaw. Maybe not, but it's lonely." She watched a father catch his falling daughter, both of them laughing. "I tell myself it's worth it, that success matters more than connection, that I'll have time for personal life later, after I've proven myself, after I've built something that lasts. But then I'm at a Christmas party, surrounded by hundreds of people, and I'm completely alone, and I wonder if I've gotten the equation wrong somehow." Daniel understood that feeling more than he wanted to admit. "After my divorce," he said slowly, "I did the opposite. I stopped being ambitious, stopped wanting anything beyond what was safe and predictable. I convinced myself that being a good dad was enough, that I didn't need anything else. Was it enough? Most days." He looked at her. "Until last night, when I realized maybe I'd been settling for existence instead of actually living." Elena's eyes held his. "What changed last night?" "You. Seeing that you were human, that you were lonely too, that maybe we could be less lonely together." The words hung in the cold air. Around them, families skated and laughed and lived their lives, oblivious to the conversation happening on a bench at the pond's edge. "This is impossible, you know," Elena said quietly. "You and me. I'm your boss. There are rules, policies, power dynamics. If anyone found out, I know, it could destroy your career. I know that too. And it might not even work. We might try this and discover we're better as distant admirers than actual whatever this becomes." "That's also possible," Daniel agreed. "But if we don't try, we'll never know. We'll just go back to being lonely, separately." Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that surprised him. "Tell me about your daughter." The change in topic was so unexpected that Daniel blinked. "Maya?" "Maya." Elena smiled. "You talk about her sometimes at work. Not often, but when you do, your whole face changes. You light up." Daniel felt his chest warm. "She's 9, smart as hell, way too perceptive, loves dragons and science, and asks approximately 900 questions a day. She's the best thing I've ever done." What happened with her mother? Sarah wanted different things, bigger things. The marriage, the family thing, it wasn't enough for her. She wanted adventure, travel, freedom from responsibility. He paused, the old hurt not as sharp as it used to be. She left when Maya was 5, sees her maybe twice a year, sends birthday cards with generic messages. Maya's learned not to expect more. That must have been hard for both of you. It was. Daniel watched a little girl about Maya's age skating confidently across the ice. But it taught me what matters. Who matters? I built my whole life around making sure Maya knew she was loved, that she was enough, that someone choosing to leave wasn't her fault. You're a good father. I try to be. Elena reached over, and for a moment Daniel thought she might take his hand. Instead, she brushed a piece of lint from his coat sleeve, a gesture so casual and intimate it made his breath catch. I don't have children, she said. Never thought I wanted them. Too focused on other things. But lately I've been wondering if I missed something important, if all my careful planning left out the things that actually matter. It's not too late, Daniel said, to want different things, to change the plan. Isn't it? I'm 35, CEO of a major firm. Everyone's watching to see if I'll fail. I can't afford to be distracted, can't afford to be human. Everyone's human, Elena, even CEOs. She looked at him with something that might have been hope. You really believe that? I know that, because I've seen it. Last night on the terrace, right now, you're not just a title. You're a woman who likes dark chocolate and quiet weekends and parks that make the city feel less lonely. A woman who's terrified of what she's feeling right now. What are you feeling? Elena took a breath, and when she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Like maybe I've been looking for you my whole life and didn't realize it until I accidentally sent you that message. Daniel's heart hammered against his ribs. Elena, I know it's crazy. I know we barely know each other. I know all the logical reasons this is a terrible idea. She finally looked at him directly. But when you walked onto that terrace last night, when you looked at me like I was just a person instead of a position, I felt seen for the first time in years. And I don't want to lose that feeling. Daniel could have listed all the reasons this was impossible. Could have been the cautious single father who always chose safety. Could have protected them both from potential disaster. Instead, he said, then let's not lose it. Let's see what happens when two lonely people decide to stop being lonely together. How? Slowly, carefully. He thought about Maya's words that morning about happiness, real happiness, not pretend. We go slow, we're honest. We figure out how to navigate the complications without destroying our lives. And if we can't, if it becomes too complicated, then we make different choices. But at least we tried. Elena studied him for a long moment. Then slowly, deliberately, she reached over and took his hand. Her fingers were cold from the winter air, but her grip was firm, real, present. I don't know how to do this, she said. How to be the CEO and also be someone's whatever this makes me. We'll figure it out together. That's not very specific. Daniel smiled. Risk assessment isn't an exact science. Sometimes you have to make decisions with incomplete information. I hate incomplete information. I know, but maybe that's part of the adventure. They sat there holding hands while families skated and children laughed and the afternoon light slanted long across the frozen pond. It wasn't a declaration. Wasn't a promise. Just two people who'd spent too long being careful deciding that maybe, just maybe, being reckless might be worth the risk. Finally, Elena stood, pulling him up with her. Walk with me? They circled the pond slowly, hands still linked, talking about everything and nothing. Elena told him about growing up in Connecticut, daughter of academics who expected excellence but never warmth. Daniel told her about his childhood in South Boston, loud and chaotic and full of family drama that felt suffocating until he lost it. They talked about college, her at Harvard, focused and driven, him at UMass, uncertain what he wanted. About first jobs and early failures and the moment they each realized the path they'd chosen. And slowly, with each story shared, the distance between CEO and employee faded into something simpler, two people learning each other. As the sun began to set and the string lights flickered on around the pond, Elena stopped walking. I should go, she said reluctantly. I have a dinner thing. Board member's retirement party, required appearance. Of course. But, Daniel? She squeezed his hand. Thank you for coming, for being willing to try this impossible thing. Thank you for sending that message, even if it was an accident. Maybe it wasn't. She smiled. Maybe I sent it to you on purpose, subconsciously, because some part of me knew you were the only one who'd understand. Is that possible? With you, I'm starting to think anything's possible. She kissed his cheek, quick, soft, barely there, and walked away before he could respond. Daniel stood by the frozen pond, touching the spot where her lips had brushed his skin, watching her disappear into the gathering dusk. His phone buzzed. This is real, Daniel. Whatever it becomes, it's real. Are you ready for that? He typed back without hesitation. Yes. Are you? I'm terrified. But yes. Then, slow and careful, like you said, but let's actually do this. Daniel pocketed his phone and headed home through the winter evening, his mind full of possibilities, his heart full of something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. The gift appeared on Daniel's desk Monday morning before he'd even removed his coat. A small white box, tied with silver ribbon, sitting precisely in the center of his workspace like it had materialized there overnight. No card. No label. Just the box and the ribbon and the weight of possibility. Daniel glanced around the office. The usual Monday morning chaos. People grabbing coffee, complaining about traffic, settling into their cubicles with the resigned energy of another work week beginning. Nobody was watching him. Nobody seemed to notice anything unusual. He picked up the box, feeling its lightness, and carried it to the break room where he could open it in relative privacy. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a snow globe, different from the one Elena had sent to his apartment. This one showed a tiny office building with two small figures visible through a window, one at a desk, one standing in a doorway. And when Daniel shook it, instead of snow, tiny silver stars swirled through the liquid. There was a note written in that same elegant handwriting. For your desk. So you remember that impossible things happen every day. Someone once told me that risk assessment isn't an exact science. Sometimes you have to make decisions with incomplete information. I'm making one now. Coffee. Wednesday. 7 a.m. That place on Tremont Street you walk past every morning but never enter. Come if you're still willing to try the impossible. E. Daniel read it 3 times, his pulse quickening with each pass. She'd noticed where he walked every morning, had paid attention to his routines, his patterns, the small details of his daily life. The thought made something warm unfold in his chest. What's that? Daniel nearly dropped the snow globe. Jennifer stood in the doorway, coffee in hand, eyebrow raised with curiosity. Nothing, just a gift. From who? She stepped closer, peering at the snow globe. That's cute. Secret admirer? Something like that. Jennifer's eyes lit up with the particular gleam of someone who loved office gossip. Daniel Harper has a secret admirer? This is the most interesting thing to happen in this department in months. Tell me everything. There's nothing to tell. That is clearly a lie. You're blushing. I don't blush. You're doing it right now. Your ears are turning red. She settled against the counter, making it clear she wasn't leaving without information. Come on, Danny. You've been walking around here like a ghost for 4 years. If someone's finally gotten your attention, I want details. Daniel considered his options. Jennifer was persistent, observant, and entirely too good at reading people. Lying would only make her more curious. But the truth was impossible to share. It's new, he said carefully. Very new. And complicated. Complicated how? Just complicated. Different worlds, different lives. I'm not even sure it's real yet. Jennifer studied him with the shrewdness that made her excellent at client relations and terrible at keeping secrets. But you want it to be real. Yeah, Daniel admitted. I do. Then pursue it. Life's too short to let complications stop you from being happy. She pushed off the counter, heading for the door, then paused. And Daniel, whatever this is, whoever she is, I haven't seen you smile like this in years. That matters more than complications. After she left, Daniel stood alone in the break room, holding the snow globe, thinking about Elena's invitation. Coffee. Wednesday. A public place, but early enough that the office wouldn't be awake yet. Neutral territory where they could talk without the weight of the building pressing down on them. He pulled out his phone. "I'll be there." The response came within seconds. "Good. I was worried you'd changed your mind." "Not a chance. We need to talk about how this works. The rules, the boundaries." "I know. We'll figure it out." Then after a pause, "Daniel, I'm glad it's you." He typed back, "Me too." The rest of Monday passed in a blur of spreadsheets and conference calls that Daniel navigated on autopilot, his mind elsewhere. Tuesday was worse, dragging with agonizing slowness as he counted down hours until Wednesday morning. Maya noticed his distraction that night at dinner. "Daddy, you're not listening." "What?" "Sorry, Bug. What were you saying?" "I was asking if you could help with my science project. We have to build a model of the solar system, and I want to make Saturn's rings out of real ice." "Real ice will melt, sweetheart." "That's the point. It's about how Saturn's rings are constantly changing. Mrs. Peterson said we should think creatively." Daniel smiled despite his preoccupation. "That's actually brilliant. Yeah, I'll help. When's it due?" "Next Friday." "But, Daddy..." She put down her fork, fixing him with that too perceptive stare that always made him feel transparent. "Are you okay? You've been acting weird since the weekend." Define weird. "Like you're here but not here. Like your body's at the table but your brain's somewhere else." He reached over and ruffled her hair, earning an indignant squeak. "I'm fine, Bug. Just have a lot on my mind with work." "Is it bad work stuff?" "No, actually, it's good work stuff, I think." Maya considered this. "Does it have to do with that friend you went to meet at the park?" Daniel should have known better than to underestimate his daughter's memory. "Maybe. Are you going to see her again?" "Tomorrow morning, for coffee." "Like a date?" "More like conversation. We're figuring things out." Maya grinned, and Daniel saw a flash of his ex-wife in that expression. The same mischievous delight in other people's romantic complications. "You like her." "I barely know her." "But you like her. I can tell." "How can you tell?" "Because you're doing that thing where you smile at your phone when you think I'm not looking, and you've checked it like 100 times tonight." She took a bite of her mac and cheese, looking far too satisfied. "It's okay, Daddy. You're allowed to like someone." "When did you become the adult in this relationship?" "Someone has to be." She reached across the table and patted his hand with exaggerated sympathy. "Don't worry, I approve. Anyone who makes you smile at your phone that much is probably pretty great." Daniel laughed, pulling her into a hug across the table. "What did I do to deserve you?" "You got lucky," she said matter-of-factly. "Now can we talk about the ice rings? I have drawings." That night, after Maya was asleep and the apartment was quiet, Daniel lay in bed thinking about the next morning, about Elena and coffee and impossible things. His phone buzzed. "Are you awake?" "Yes, can't sleep. Me neither. I keep rehearsing what to say tomorrow. What have you come up with?" "Nothing that doesn't sound either too clinical or too emotional. I'm better with quarterly reports than feelings." Daniel smiled at his phone in the darkness. "We don't need a script. We just need to be honest." "That's what scares me." "Honesty means vulnerability. I know. But we already jumped off that cliff, Elena. We can't go back to pretending now." A long pause. Then, "I've spent my entire adult life being careful, controlled, never letting anyone see weakness. And here you are, Daniel Harper, making me want to throw all that away. Is that a bad thing?" "I don't know yet. Ask me tomorrow." "I will. Get some sleep, Elena." "You too." "And Daniel, thank you." "For what?" "For not running. For being willing to figure this out with me. For making me feel like maybe I don't have to choose between success and happiness." "You don't. We'll prove it together." "Good night, Daniel. Good night." Daniel set his phone down, staring at the ceiling, his heart full of something that felt dangerously close to joy. Wednesday morning arrived cold and bright. Daniel dropped Maya at school early. She had chess club before first period, then headed toward Tremont Street, his breath forming clouds in the frozen air. The coffee shop was called Ember and Oak, a small place wedged between a bookstore and a law office. Daniel had walked past it hundreds of times, always meaning to try it, never quite finding the motivation. Until now. Elena was already there when he arrived, sitting at a corner table near the window, wearing jeans and a burgundy sweater that made her look younger than her 35 years. She had 2 cups in front of her, both untouched, both steaming. "I didn't know what you liked," she said as he approached. "So I got 1 black coffee and 1 cappuccino. You can choose." Daniel sat down, feeling the surreal weight of this moment. The CEO of his company, sitting across from him in a coffee shop at 7 in the morning, nervous about which drink he'd prefer. "Cappuccino," he said. "I like the foam." She pushed the cup toward him, and their fingers brushed. That small contact sent electricity through his nervous system. "Thank you for coming," Elena said. "Thank you for asking." They sat in silence for a moment, both holding their cups, neither drinking. Outside, the city was waking up, cars passing, early commuters hurrying by, the rhythms of Boston beginning another day. "I made a list," Elena said finally. "A list?" She pulled out her phone, but Daniel could see she'd actually written it on paper first, neat handwriting on what looked like expensive stationery. "Of things we need to discuss, rules, boundaries, how to make this work without destroying our careers." "Very CEO of you." "Old habits." She almost smiled. "Do you want to hear it?" "Please." Elena took a breath, her fingers tightening around her coffee cup. "First, discretion. Nobody at work can know, not yet. Maybe not ever, depending on how this goes." "Agreed." "Second, no preferential treatment. Your career advancement has to be entirely merit-based. I can't be involved in any decisions about your promotions, raises, or assignments." "That makes sense." "Third, if it becomes too complicated, if the personal starts affecting the professional, we agree to step back and reassess." "Okay." "Fourth, we move slowly, no rushing into anything. We take time to actually know each other outside of the office dynamic." "I'm fine with slow." Elena looked up from her list, meeting his eyes. "And fifth, complete honesty. Always. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." "Especially then," Daniel agreed. She set down the paper, looking relieved. "So those are my thoughts. Do you have anything to add?" Daniel considered. "One thing." "What?" "We don't let fear make our decisions. We can be careful, but we can't be paralyzed. If we're always waiting for the perfect moment or the risk-free option, we'll never actually try this." Elena studied him for a long moment. "That's harder than it sounds. Fear is my default setting." "Mine too. But maybe that's why this could work. We both understand being scared. Or maybe it's why we'll fail. 2 scared people trying to be brave together." "Is that what you think? That we'll fail?" Elena was quiet, her fingers tracing patterns on her coffee cup. When she spoke, her voice was softer. "I think I want this to work more than I've wanted anything in a very long time. And that terrifies me, because wanting something this much means it can hurt me." Daniel reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "It can also make you happy. I'm not good at happy. I'm good at driven, focused, successful. Maybe it's time to learn something new." She turned her hand over, lacing her fingers through his. "You make it sound simple." "It's not, but maybe we make it possible." They sat like that, hands linked across the table, while early morning light streamed through the window and the coffee shop filled with the sounds of other people beginning their days. "Tell me something about you I don't know," Elena said suddenly. "Like what?" "Anything. Something real. Something that's not on your employee file." Daniel thought. "I wanted to be a musician when I was younger. Piano. I was actually pretty good. Got into Berkeley on a partial scholarship." "What happened?" "Life happened. My dad got sick my senior year of high school. Medical bills. I needed something more stable than music, so I switched to finance." He shrugged. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd chosen differently." "Do you still play?" "Sometimes. Late at night when Maya's asleep. I have an old keyboard in my closet." Elena's expression softened. "I'd like to hear you play someday." "Your turn. Tell me something real." She hesitated, then said quietly, "I have terrible insomnia. Have since college. Some nights I don't sleep at all. I just work until dawn, then pretend I'm fine. My assistant thinks I'm superhuman. Really, I'm just exhausted." "Elena, and I'm lonely." The words came out in a rush, like she'd been holding them back too long. I'm so lonely, sometimes I can't breathe. I go to parties and dinners and charity galas, and I smile and network and say all the right things, but I come home to an empty apartment and wonder what any of it means. Daniel squeezed her hand. You're not alone anymore. How can you say that? We barely know each other. Because I feel it too. That loneliness. And sitting here with you right now, I feel less of it. Don't you? Elena's eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. Yes, I feel less of it. Then that's real. Whatever else happens, that part is real. They talked for an hour, then another. The coffee shop filled and emptied around them, morning rush giving way to mid-morning lull, but they stayed in their corner table, learning each other. Elena told him about her parents, brilliant academics who measured love in achievements, who praised her degrees but never asked if she was happy. About boarding school, where she learned to be self-sufficient because nobody else would take care of her. About her first job out of Harvard Business School, where she worked 90-hour weeks to prove she belonged. Daniel told her about his marriage, how he and Sarah had met in college, got married too young, had Maya before either of them was ready. How Sarah had slowly suffocated under the weight of responsibility until one day she just left. How he'd spent 4 years building walls to protect Maya and himself from ever being abandoned again. That's why you're so careful, Elena said, understanding dawning in her eyes. You're not just protecting yourself. You're protecting your daughter. If I mess this up, if it goes badly and affects my job, it won't. I won't let it. She said it with such fierce certainty that Daniel almost believed it. Whatever happens between us, I'll make sure your career is protected. I promise. You can't promise that. You don't control everything. No, but I can control more than you think. She glanced at her watch, and her expression shifted, back to something more guarded, more CEO-like. I need to get to the office. Board meeting at 9. Of course. They stood, gathering their things, and for a moment the careful distance tried to reassert itself. Boss and employee, different worlds. But then Elena did something unexpected. She stepped close enough that Daniel could smell her perfume and kissed his cheek, longer this time, more deliberate than the quick brush at the park. Same time Friday? She asked quietly. I'll be here. And Daniel, your daughter, Maya, I'd like to meet her, eventually, when you're ready. The suggestion shocked him so completely that he couldn't speak for a moment. You want to meet Maya? If this is real, and I think it is, then I need to understand all of you, not just the employee, the father too. Daniel felt something crack open in his chest. Sarah had never wanted to be a mother, had tolerated Maya but never embraced that part of their lives. And here was Elena, powerful and successful, and completely out of his league, asking to be part of the most important relationship in his world. I'd like that, he managed. When the time's right. No rush. Slow and careful, remember? She smiled, and it transformed her face. But I wanted you to know I'm thinking about it, about a future where this is more than secret coffee meetings. Then she was gone, disappearing into the morning crowd, leaving Daniel standing in the coffee shop with his heart pounding and his mind racing with possibilities. His phone buzzed. That was harder than I expected. What was? Walking away from you. Daniel's breath caught. Friday feels very far away. We can text, in the evenings, when work is done. I'd like that. Me too. Now go be brilliant at your job so nobody suspects you're distracted. I'll try. Though you're very distracting. Good. You're distracting too, Daniel Harper, in the best possible way. The next few days established a pattern. They texted in the evenings, never about work, always about real things. Elena told him about books she was reading, recipes she attempted and failed, the stray cat that had adopted her apartment building. Daniel sent her photos of Maya's science project, stories from his day, questions about her childhood. And slowly, through pixels and words, they built something that felt like intimacy. Friday morning came, and Daniel arrived at Ember and Oak to find Elena already there, 2 cappuccinos waiting. I remembered, she said as he sat down. I noticed. They fell into conversation easily now, the initial awkwardness replaced by growing comfort. Elena talked about the pressures of an upcoming investor meeting, Daniel shared his frustration with a coworker who kept taking credit for his analysis. Fire him, Elena said immediately. I can't fire him. I'm not his boss. I can fire him. Elena, no. That's exactly what we can't do. No preferential treatment, remember? She sighed. I know, but it's frustrating watching someone undervalue you when I can see how brilliant you are. You think I'm brilliant? I've read your reports, Daniel. You see patterns other people miss. Make connections that save the company millions. You're wasted in your current position. Careful. That sounds like you're considering a promotion. Not me personally, but hypothetically, if you were nominated for advancement by someone else entirely, based purely on merit, and the decision was made by a committee I had no involvement with. Daniel laughed. You've really thought about this. I think about a lot of things involving you. She said it matter-of-factly, but her eyes held warmth. Too many things. It's becoming a problem. A good problem? I'm not sure yet. They talked until the coffee shop began filling with the lunch crowd, forcing them to recognize how much time had passed. I should go, Elena said reluctantly. I have a meeting with the mayor this afternoon about the development project. Of course. Daniel stood, helping her with her coat in a gesture that felt both chivalrous and intimate. Same time Monday? Actually? Elena paused, and for the first time since he'd known her, she looked genuinely nervous. I was wondering if you'd want to do something different, something outside coffee shops and careful timing. Like what? There's a charity gala Saturday night for the Children's Hospital. I have to go. Board obligation, but I can bring a guest. She spoke quickly, like she might lose courage. It would be public. People would see us together, but it wouldn't necessarily mean anything. Lots of executives bring colleagues to these things. Daniel's heart raced. Are you asking me to be your date? I'm asking you to be my guest. At a very boring fundraiser where we'd have to be careful and appropriate and probably couldn't even really talk to each other. She met his eyes. But we'd be in the same room, and maybe that would be enough for now. I don't own a tux. You can rent one. Or I can arrange. I'll rent one. He smiled. Send me the details. I'll be there. Elena's face lit up with genuine joy. Really? Really? Though I should warn you, I'm terrible at these things. Small talk, networking, remembering important people's names. I'm excellent at all of those things. We'll balance each other. She squeezed his hand quickly, glancing around to make sure nobody was watching. Thank you, Daniel. For what? For being willing to step into my world. I know it's not comfortable for you. Neither was the terrace at the Christmas party or that first coffee, but I'm glad I did both. Me too. Saturday night, Daniel stood in his bathroom adjusting his bow tie for the 7th time, trying to calm his nerves. Daddy, you look fancy. Maya appeared in the doorway, already in her pajamas, even though it was only 6 o'clock. His neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was staying with her for the evening, a kind grandmother type who loved having Maya over. I feel ridiculous. You look like James Bond. I look like someone playing dress-up in a costume that doesn't fit right. Maya walked over and fixed his bow tie with surprising competence. There, perfect. Now you look like fancy daddy. When did you learn to tie bow ties? YouTube. I knew you'd need help. She stepped back, studying him critically. Is this for the friend, the one you've been having coffee with? Daniel should have known better than to try keeping secrets from his daughter. Yes. It's a work event, but she invited me. So it is a date. It's complicated. Everything's always complicated with you, she grinned. But you're happy, so I'm happy. Just don't stay out too late. Mrs. Chen snores on the couch after 9. Daniel pulled her into a hug, overwhelmed by love for this wise, wonderful person who somehow understood him better than he understood himself. What did I do to deserve you? We've established you got lucky. Now go. Don't keep your not-girlfriend waiting. The gala was held at the Four Seasons, in a ballroom that dripped with crystal and opulence. Daniel arrived feeling completely out of his element, surrounded by Boston's elite in designer gowns and custom tuxedos. He was scanning the room, trying to find Elena, when he heard her voice behind him. You came. He turned, and his breath stopped. Elena wore a floor-length emerald dress that somehow made her eyes look even more striking. Her hair was swept up, revealing the elegant line of her neck. She looked like something from a movie. Sophisticated, powerful, absolutely stunning. You look... Daniel couldn't find words adequate. Incredible. You clean up pretty well yourself. She smiled, and he saw genuine pleasure in her expression. I wasn't sure you'd actually come. I thought maybe the reality of it would scare you off. I'm terrified, but I'm here. Good. So am I. Terrified and here. She glanced around the room, then back to him. We should probably mingle separately for a while, appearances and all, but later there's a balcony on the 3rd floor. Meet me there at 9? I'll find it. Good. She touched his hand briefly, so quick anyone watching would miss it. I'm glad you're here, Daniel. Even if we can't really be together, knowing you're in the same room makes this bearable. Then she was swept away by a cluster of board members, and Daniel was left standing alone, his heart pounding, watching her transform into the CEO version of herself. Charming, professional, untouchable. The next 2 hours were agony. Daniel made awkward small talk with strangers, avoided the investor who wanted to discuss market volatility, and counted down minutes until 9 o'clock. Finally, mercifully, he slipped away and found the balcony Elena had mentioned. It overlooked the city, strung with lights, cold and beautiful and blissfully empty. Elena joined him 5 minutes later, closing the door behind her and leaning against it with visible relief. If one more person asks me about Q4 projections, I'm going to scream. Daniel laughed. That bad? Worse. I've had the same conversation 17 times. Everyone wants something. Nobody actually cares how I am. She walked to the railing beside him. Except you. You always ask how I am. How are you? Exhausted, overwhelmed, counting down minutes until I can leave this circus. She paused. Better now that you're here. They stood side by side, not touching, looking out at Boston spreading below them. Thank you for inviting me, Daniel said. Thank you for coming. I know this isn't your world. It's not, but you are. And I'm starting to think maybe that's enough. Elena turned to look at him, something vulnerable in her expression. Daniel, I need to tell you something. What? I've been thinking about this, about us, and I realized something. She took a breath. I'm falling for you. Actually falling, not just appreciating you or enjoying our conversations. Falling in a way that scares me because I haven't felt this in maybe ever. Daniel's heart hammered against his ribs. Elena, I know it's fast. I know we said slow and careful, but I need you to know what this is becoming for me. Because if you're not feeling the same thing, if this is just a nice distraction for you, I need to protect myself before I get hurt. Daniel reached for her hand, no longer caring who might see. I'm falling too, have been since that message. Maybe before. Really? Really, you terrify me and excite me and make me want things I thought I'd given up on. So yes, I'm falling, completely. Elena's eyes were bright with emotion. What do we do now? We keep falling, see where we land. She laughed, a sound of pure relief and joy. That's a terrible plan. You have a better one? No, not even a little bit. She squeezed his hand. We should go back. People will notice we're both missing. I know. But neither of them moved. They stood together in the cold night air, hands linked, the city glowing below, both of them balanced on the edge of something that felt terrifyingly real. Finally, Elena pulled away reluctantly. 9 o'clock Monday? I'll be there. Good. Because I don't think I can make it through a full weekend without seeing you now. She kissed his cheek one more time, then disappeared back into the gala, leaving Daniel alone with his racing heart and the absolute certainty that his carefully constructed life was changing in ways he could no longer control. And for the first time in 4 years, that didn't scare him. It felt like freedom. The email arrived in HR's inbox on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after the charity gala. Anonymous. Clinical. Devastating. Daniel knew nothing about it until Marcus cornered him by the elevators just before lunch, his usual easy grin replaced by something tight and worried. Danny, we need to talk. About what? Marcus glanced around, then pulled him into an empty conference room and closed the door. There's a rumor going around. about you and Elena Whitmore. Daniel's blood went cold. What kind of rumor? The kind that says you two are involved. Romantically. Marcus studied his face. Please tell me it's not true. Daniel couldn't speak, couldn't deny it convincingly enough to matter. His silence was answer enough. Oh, hell, Danny. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. Tell me you haven't been that stupid. It's not like that. Then what's it like? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're sleeping with the CEO, and that's the kind of thing that destroys careers. We're not sleeping together. Daniel kept his voice low, aware that even in a closed room, walls had ears. We've been getting to know each other, coffee, conversations, that's all. Does anyone else know? I didn't think so. Well, someone knows, or suspects, because Jennifer just told me that HR called Elena into a meeting this morning. Marcus's expression was grim. They're opening an investigation, Danny, into whether there's a conflict of interest, whether she's showing you favoritism. Daniel felt the floor tilt beneath him. I haven't received any special treatment. My last promotion was 2 years ago, before we ever... Doesn't matter. Perception is reality in these situations. If people think you're getting ahead because you're involved with the boss, your reputation is shot. And hers? She could lose everything. The weight of it hit Daniel like a physical blow. Elena had worked her entire life to become CEO, had sacrificed relationships and personal happiness and probably her own health to reach the top. And now, because of him, because they'd been careless or someone had been watching or... Who reported it? Daniel asked. Anonymous complaint. Could be anyone. Could be someone who saw you at the gala. Could be someone who noticed the way you look at her. Could be someone with an axe to grind who's using this to take her down. Marcus softened slightly. Look, man, I'm not judging, but you need to be smart about this. If there's an investigation, you need to decide how you're going to handle it. There's nothing to investigate. We haven't violated any policies. Then you better hope HR sees it that way. Because right now the entire office is talking about whether the CEO is screwing one of her employees, and that's not the kind of conversation that ends well for anyone. After Marcus left, Daniel sat alone in the conference room, his mind racing. He pulled out his phone, then stopped. Texting Elena right now would be stupid. If they were monitoring communications, if someone was watching for evidence. But he needed to talk to her, needed to know what was happening, needed to figure out how to protect her from the fallout of something that had felt so right just days ago. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Don't call or text my regular number. They might be monitoring. This is a burner phone. Meet me tonight. 8 p.m. My apartment. Address below. Come to the back entrance. Be careful. Daniel stared at the message, his heart pounding. This was real. This was happening. Their careful secret had been exposed, and now they were sneaking around like criminals. The rest of the day was torture. Daniel tried to focus on work, but every conversation that stopped when he entered a room, every sideways glance from colleagues, confirmed that Marcus was right. The entire office was talking. Jennifer found him at his desk around 3. Is it true? She asked quietly. Is what true? Don't play dumb, Danny. Everyone's saying you and Miss Whitmore have been seeing each other, that you've been having an affair. It's not an affair, and it's none of their business. Jennifer's expression softened. I'm not judging you. I'm worried about you. Do you know what could happen if this goes badly? If they decide there was a conflict of interest? I haven't done anything wrong. Neither has she. Maybe not. But in situations like this, the truth doesn't always matter. What matters is the story people tell themselves. She paused. Just be careful, okay? You've got Maya to think about. The mention of his daughter sent a fresh wave of panic through Daniel's chest. If he lost his job over this, how would he support her? Pay for her school, her activities, their apartment? He'd been so caught up in the impossibility and excitement of Elena that he'd forgotten the most basic rule of his life. Maya came first. Always. By the time 8 o'clock arrived, Daniel was a wreck of anxiety and guilt. He took the T to Back Bay, then walked the remaining blocks to Elena's building, an elegant brownstone that probably cost more than he'd earn in a lifetime. The back entrance was discreet, tucked behind a small garden. Daniel found it unlocked and climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor, where Elena was waiting at her door. She looked terrible. Her hair was down and disheveled, her face pale without makeup, her eyes red-rimmed like she'd been crying. She wore yoga pants and an oversized sweater, and she'd never looked more human or more vulnerable. "Come in," she said quietly. "Quickly." Her apartment was beautiful. High ceilings, hardwood floors, furniture that looked expensive but not ostentatious. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the street, but she'd drawn all the curtains. "Are you okay?" Daniel asked. Elena laughed, a sound without humor. "I've been better. Coffee, wine, something stronger. Whatever you're having." She poured them both whiskey, neat, generous amounts, and they sat on her couch, not touching, the distance between them feeling suddenly vast. "Tell me what happened," Daniel said. Elena took a long drink before answering. "HR called me in this morning, told me they'd received an anonymous complaint alleging an inappropriate relationship between us. They asked if it was true. I told them we'd been getting to know each other outside of work, but that there was no conflict of interest, no policy violations, nothing that affected your employment status." "What did they say?" "That they'd be conducting a formal investigation, interviewing people, reviewing communications, looking for any evidence of favoritism or improper conduct." She set down her glass with shaking hands. "Daniel, they're going through everything, every email I've ever sent you, every decision I've made that could possibly have affected your career. They're building a case." "Against you?" "Against both of us, but mostly me, because I'm the one with power. I'm the one who should have known better." Daniel felt anger flare in his chest. "You didn't do anything wrong. We haven't violated any policies. We've been careful." "Not careful enough," Elena's voice cracked. "Someone saw us. Someone knew. And now my entire career is at risk because I was stupid enough to think I could have something personal without it destroying everything professional." "Elena, do you know what the board is going to think? What the investors will say when this gets out? I'm the youngest CEO in the company's history. I've spent 4 years proving I deserve this position, and now I'm going to be reduced to a headline about a boss who couldn't keep her personal life separate from work. It won't come to that. We'll explain. We'll show them there's been no favoritism, no violations. It doesn't matter." Elena stood abruptly, pacing to the window. "Don't you understand? In this world, perception is everything. Even if we're completely innocent, even if we've done nothing wrong, the fact that people are talking about it is enough to damage both our reputations. Mine especially." Daniel stood too, crossing to her. "Then we fight it. We prove them wrong." "How?" "By admitting we've been seeing each other. That'll just confirm their suspicions. By denying it, that makes us look like liars when the truth eventually comes out." She turned to face him, tears streaming down her face. "There's no good option here, Daniel. Every path leads to destruction." "So what are you saying?" Elena took a shuddering breath. "I'm saying maybe we need to end this, before it gets worse, before we both lose everything." The words hit Daniel like a physical blow. "You want to end this? Now? When things are just getting complicated? I want to protect you and Maya and my company, and the only way to do that is to stop giving people ammunition." "That's fear talking. That's you retreating because things got hard." "Maybe fear is the smart choice," Elena's voice rose. "Maybe I should have been more afraid from the beginning, should have recognized that this was impossible and stayed away from you. But you didn't, and neither did I, because this is real, Elena. What we have is real. Real doesn't pay Maya's tuition when you lose your job. Real doesn't save my company when the board decides I'm a liability." She wiped at her tears angrily. "I've spent my entire life being smart, being strategic, thinking 5 moves ahead. And then you came along and made me stupid, made me forget that some risks aren't worth taking." "So I made you stupid? That's what this is?" "That's not what I meant. No, I think it's exactly what you meant. You're scared, so you're lashing out, pushing me away because that's easier than fighting for something." "Don't you dare judge me," Elena shot back. "You don't know what it's like to have everything you've worked for hanging in the balance, to have hundreds of employees depending on you, to know that one wrong move could destroy it all." "You're right. I don't know what that's like. I'm just a mid-level employee who was stupid enough to think a CEO could actually care about him as something more than a complication." The silence that followed was brutal. Elena sank onto the couch, all the fight draining out of her. I do care about you. That's the problem. I care so much it terrifies me. Daniel sat beside her, leaving space between them. Then tell me what you want. Not what's smart or strategic or safe. What do you actually want? I want this to be easier. I want to be with you without it risking everything. I want to wake up tomorrow and have this all be a bad dream. She looked at him with devastated eyes. But most of all, I want you to be okay, even if that means letting you go. What if I don't want to be let go? Then you're an idiot, because staying with me right now is career suicide. Maybe, or maybe fighting for this is the first brave thing I've done in 4 years. Elena reached for his hand, holding it like a lifeline. Daniel, I need you to understand something. If we continue this, if we fight this investigation and stay together, there will be consequences. For both of us. But especially for you. You're the vulnerable one here. You're the one who can't afford to lose. And you can? I've already lost so much to get where I am. What's one more sacrifice? Daniel turned to face her fully. Do you remember what you said to me on that terrace? You said you wanted someone to see you. Really see you. Not the title or the success or the power, just Elena. I remember. I still see you, Elena. Right now, scared and crying and trying to push me away for my own good. I see you, all of you, and I'm not going anywhere unless you genuinely don't want me here. Of course I want you here, but what I want doesn't matter when... The sound of her phone buzzing cut her off. She glanced at the screen and went pale. What is it? It's the board chair. At 9 o'clock at night. That's never good. She answered, and Daniel watched her face shift through a series of emotions. Surprise, anger, devastation. The conversation was brief, mostly her listening, occasionally saying, I understand, or, yes, I see. When she hung up, she looked like she might be sick. They know who filed the complaint, she said quietly. Who? James Mitchell. Remember him? The intern who was let go last spring for falsifying expense reports? Daniel did remember. Mitchell had been brilliant but arrogant, had made enemies throughout the office, and had blamed Elena personally when he was fired despite the decision involving multiple people. He filed a formal complaint alleging that we've been having an inappropriate relationship and that I've been giving you preferential treatment in exchange for sexual favors. Elena's voice was hollow. He has photos from the gala of us on the balcony, close together, holding hands. Daniel felt his stomach drop. Photos? He must have followed us. Been watching, waiting for evidence. She laughed bitterly. And we gave it to him. We were so careful everywhere else, but one moment of honesty on that balcony, and now it's going to destroy everything. What did the board chair say? That they're taking the allegation seriously, that there will be a full investigation, that I need to recuse myself from any decisions involving your employment, and that we both need to prepare to answer questions under oath. She met his eyes. Daniel, this is bad. Really bad. Mitchell is claiming you've received 3 promotions in the past year because of our relationship. That's insane. I haven't had a promotion in 2 years, long before we ever... I know, but he's twisting facts, creating a narrative. And the board is going to investigate every interaction we've had, every email, every decision that could possibly look suspicious. Daniel stood, pacing now, his mind racing. We need a lawyer. We need to prepare a defense. We need to show that every promotion, every decision about my career has been based purely on merit. The board is already reviewing everything, and Daniel, Elena's voice broke. There's something else. The board chair suggested that the cleanest solution would be for one of us to leave the company, voluntarily, before this becomes public. Leave? You mean resign? It would end the investigation, show that we're taking responsibility, protect the company's reputation. And which one of us is supposed to fall on that sword? Elena didn't answer, which was answer enough. They want you to force me out, Daniel said flatly. That's what they're suggesting, that I quietly resign and this all goes away. They didn't say that explicitly. They didn't have to. Daniel felt anger replace fear. Of course it's me. I'm disposable. Just another employee. You're the CEO. You're worth protecting. That's not fair, isn't it? Be honest, Elena. If the board gave you an ultimatum, your job or mine, what would you choose? She looked at him with anguished eyes. Don't make me answer that. Why not? Because we both know what you'd choose. You'd choose the company. You'd choose your career. You'd choose the safe option and tell yourself it was for my own good. Daniel, please, I should go. He grabbed his coat, needing to get out before he said something he'd regret. You need to figure out what you want, and I need to figure out if fighting for this is worth losing everything. Don't leave like this. Don't leave angry. Daniel paused at the door, looking back at her. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed. Because I thought maybe you were brave enough to fight for this. For us. But at the first sign of real trouble, you're already planning your exit strategy. That's not true. Then prove it. When the investigation happens, when they ask you about us, tell them the truth. Tell them we've been getting to know each other and there's been no impropriety, no favoritism, nothing inappropriate. Stand up and fight instead of calculating the safest path. And if fighting costs us both everything, then at least we'll know we tried. He left before she could respond, taking the stairs two at a time, emerging into the cold night air feeling like he couldn't breathe. His phone buzzed almost immediately. Please don't give up on us. I'm scared, but I'm not giving up. I won't let them force you out. I promise. Daniel stared at the message, his emotions a tangled mess of anger and fear and desperate hope. He typed back, Then we fight. Together. No matter what it costs. The response came quickly. Together. I promise. Even if I'm terrified. Especially because you're terrified. That's when bravery matters most. You're right. I'm sorry for what I said, for suggesting we should end this. You were scared, I get it. But Elena, we're past the point of being able to walk away cleanly. This is happening whether we want it to or not. The only choice is whether we face it together or alone. Together. Always together. Come back. Please? I don't want to spend tonight alone. Daniel hesitated. Going back would be easy, comforting, but it would also be avoiding the hard conversations they needed to have. Not tonight. We both need space to think. But tomorrow, coffee. Our place. 7 a.m. We'll figure out our strategy. Okay, I'll be there. And Daniel? Yeah? Thank you for not giving up on me when I was ready to give up on us. That's what partners do. They fight for each other. Partners. I like the sound of that. Daniel pocketed his phone and headed for the tea, his mind already working through scenarios, possibilities, defenses. He'd spent 4 years playing it safe, avoiding risk, protecting himself and Maya from anything that could hurt them. But something Elena had said on that terrace weeks ago kept echoing in his head. She'd wanted someone to see her. Really see her. And he did. He saw a woman who'd sacrificed everything for success and was just now learning that success without connection was empty. And if he walked away now, if he let fear win, he'd be proving that he couldn't handle the reality of who she was, that he only wanted her when it was easy and safe and uncomplicated. But love, real love, was none of those things. It was messy and scary and required fighting for something you believed in even when the odds were stacked against you. The next morning, Daniel arrived at Ember and Oak to find Elena already there, looking exhausted but determined. She had 2 coffees waiting and a folder thick with documents. I couldn't sleep, she said as he sat down, so I spent the night preparing our defense. Our defense? I'm not letting you face this alone. If they're investigating us, we prepare together. We tell the same story because it's the truth. She opened the folder. I've documented every promotion decision, every project assignment, every interaction that could possibly be questioned. I've shown that your advancement has been entirely merit-based, that other people made the decisions about your career, that I've actually recused myself from discussions about your department. Daniel looked through the documents, impressed despite everything. This is thorough. I don't do anything halfway, including fighting for people I care about. She met his eyes. I'm sorry about last night, for panicking, for suggesting we should end this. You were scared. I understand. Being scared isn't an excuse. You were right. I was looking for the safe exit instead of being brave enough to fight. She reached across the table, taking his hand. But I'm done running. Whatever happens with this investigation, we face it together, honestly. And we deal with the consequences together too. Even if those consequences include losing your job? Even then, Because I'm starting to realize that having the perfect career doesn't mean much if I'm alone and miserable. And you make me less alone, Daniel. You make me feel like a person instead of a position. That's worth fighting for. Daniel squeezed her hand. The board is going to pressure you. They're going to suggest that the cleanest solution is for me to leave. I know. And I'm going to tell them that's not acceptable. That you're a valuable employee who's done nothing wrong, and if they try to force you out, they'll have a lawsuit on their hands. Elena, you can't go to war with your own board over me. Watch me. Her expression was fierce. I've spent 4 years being the perfect CEO, making the smart strategic decisions, prioritizing the company over everything personal. And where has it gotten me? Lonely, exhausted, wondering if any of this matters. So yes, I'm going to fight for you, even if it's messy, even if it costs me. What if it costs you everything? Elena was quiet for a moment, then said softly, Then I'll build something new. With you. And maybe that's been the problem all along. I've been so focused on protecting what I have that I forgot to consider what I might be missing. They sat in the coffee shop as morning light streamed through the windows, holding hands across the table, both of them aware they were stepping into a battle that could destroy everything they'd worked for. But for the first time in his life, Daniel wasn't calculating the risks or planning the safest exit. He was choosing to fight for something real, even if it was terrifying. And beside him, Elena was making the same choice. The guarded CEO who'd built walls around her heart was finally letting someone in. Consequences be damned. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The HR investigation took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of interviews, document reviews, and whispered conversations that stopped whenever Daniel entered a room. 3 weeks of Elena maintaining perfect professional distance at the office while texting him every night with updates and reassurances and occasional moments of panic. 3 weeks of Daniel wondering if fighting for this had been the bravest or stupidest decision of his life. The official interview happened on a Thursday. Daniel sat across from 2 HR representatives and a corporate attorney in a windowless conference room that smelled like stale coffee and anxiety. Mr. Harper, let's be clear about why we're here, said Patricia Chen, the senior HR director. She was a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen every workplace drama imaginable and been unimpressed by all of them. We've received allegations that you and Ms. Whitmore have been engaged in a romantic relationship and that this relationship has influenced decisions about your employment. We need to understand the facts. Daniel had rehearsed this moment with Elena a dozen times. Stick to the truth. Be direct. Don't get defensive. Ms. Whitmore and I have been getting to know each other personally. Yes. We've had coffee several times. We attended a charity gala together. We've developed feelings for each other. He kept his voice steady. But there has been no impropriety, no exchange of favors, no influence on my career advancement. Everything I've achieved at this company has been based on my work performance, nothing else. And yet you've received 2 salary increases in the past 18 months. Patricia consulted her notes. Both approved during Miss Whitmore's tenure as CEO. Both increases were standard annual adjustments approved for my entire department. The decisions were made by my direct supervisor and the compensation committee. Miss Whitmore wasn't involved in either decision, but she could have been. As CEO, she has influence over all compensation decisions. She could have been involved in decisions about anyone's salary. That doesn't mean she was. Daniel leaned forward. If you review the documentation, you'll see that every decision about my career has followed normal protocols and procedures. There's been no special treatment. The attorney, a thin man named Robert Walsh, spoke up. Mr. Harper, when did your relationship with Ms. Whitmore begin? We had our first personal conversation at the Christmas party, early December. Everything developed from there. And you didn't think to disclose this relationship to HR? There was nothing to disclose. We are 2 adults getting to know each other. There's no company policy against employees dating, even across hierarchical levels, as long as there's no conflict of interest. The CEO dating a mid-level employee is inherently a conflict of interest, Walsh said flatly. Then perhaps the policy should be clear about that, because we reviewed it carefully before pursuing anything, and nothing prohibited what we were doing. Patricia made a note. Let's talk about the charity gala you attended as Miss Whitmore's guest. Yes. In what capacity? As her date. She invited me. I accepted. Did you think that was appropriate? Daniel felt anger flash through him. I thought it was two people who care about each other spending time together at a public event. If that's inappropriate, then half the relationships in this company are violations. Those relationships don't involve the CEO. No, they don't, but that doesn't make ours wrong. It makes it more complicated, sure, more visible, more subject to scrutiny, but not wrong. The interview continued for another hour. They asked about every interaction he'd had with Elena, every email, every moment they'd been seen together. Daniel answered honestly, refusing to apologize for something that wasn't a violation. Finally, Patricia closed her folder. Mr. Harper, you should know that James Mitchell's complaint alleges that you've been romantically involved with Ms. Whitmore for over a year and that she's given you preferential treatment throughout that time. James Mitchell is lying. We've been seeing each other for less than 2 months, and the only preferential treatment I've received is being subjected to more scrutiny than any other employee in this building. We're just trying to establish the facts. The facts are simple. Elena and I developed feelings for each other. We acted on those feelings carefully and appropriately. We haven't violated any policies. And the only reason we're sitting here is because a disgruntled former employee with an axe to grind decided to weaponize our relationship. That's your interpretation. It's the truth. And if you do an honest investigation, you'll prove it. When Daniel finally left the conference room, he felt drained. He found Marcus waiting by his desk with 2 cups of coffee from the good place 3 blocks away. Thought you might need this, Marcus said, handing him one. You have no idea. They walked to the break room, which was blessedly empty. Marcus leaned against the counter, studying Daniel with concern. How bad was it? About what I expected. They asked every question, examined every interaction, tried to find evidence of impropriety. And there isn't any, because we didn't do anything wrong. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Danny, can I ask you something? And I want you to be honest. Okay. Is she worth it? Worth potentially losing your job, your reputation, everything you've built here? Daniel thought about Elena standing in her apartment, terrified and crying and trying to push him away to protect him. About her showing up the next morning with a folder full of documentation, ready to fight. About the way she looked at him like he was more than just another employee or another complication. Yeah, he said quietly. She is. Even if this ends badly, even then. Because for the first time in 4 years, I feel like I'm actually living instead of just existing, and that's worth fighting for. Marcus nodded slowly. Then I hope it works out, man. I really do. Because watching you these past few weeks, you've been different, happier, more alive. And I'd hate to see that destroyed because some bitter asshole decided to weaponize your happiness. What are people saying? In the office? Marcus grimaced. Mixed reactions. Some people think it's romantic, forbidden love and all that. Some think it's inappropriate. Some think Elena's taking advantage of her position. Some think you're an opportunist sleeping your way up the ladder. Great. But the people who actually know you, Jennifer, me, the folks in your department who've worked with you for years, we know better. We know you're not that guy. And we know Elena Whitmore didn't get to be CEO by making stupid decisions about men. Thanks, Marcus. That actually helps. Anytime. Now get back to work before people start thinking this coffee break is suspicious too. Elena's interview with HR happened that afternoon. Daniel knew because his phone buzzed at 2:47 p.m. with a single word. Starting. Then nothing for 3 hours. Soket. He tried to focus on work but found himself refreshing his email constantly, checking his phone, watching the clock. By 6 p.m., when most people had left for the day, he was ready to climb the walls. Finally, at 6:23, his phone buzzed. It's done. Can you come to my office? Is that safe? I don't care anymore. I need to see you. Please. Daniel took the elevator to the executive floor, hyper-aware that security cameras were probably recording his every move. Elena's assistant had left for the day, so the reception area was empty. Her office door was slightly ajar. He knocked softly. Elena? Come in. Close the door. Elena sat behind her massive desk, still in her business suit, but her composure was cracking. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hands shaking slightly as she poured water from a crystal pitcher. "How bad?" Daniel asked, crossing to her. They were thorough and skeptical, and clearly operating under the assumption that I've been compromised by my feelings for you. She handed him a glass of water. They wanted to know when we started seeing each other, what we've done together, whether I've made any decisions that benefited you professionally. They reviewed every interaction we've had, emails, meetings, project assignments, looking for evidence that I've shown you favoritism. Did they find any? No, because there isn't any. Your career advancement has followed standard protocols. Your salary is appropriate for your position and experience. The projects you've worked on were assigned by your direct supervisor, not me. She sat on the edge of her desk, suddenly looking exhausted. But they kept pushing, kept suggesting that even the appearance of impropriety was enough to warrant action. What kind of action? Elena met his eyes. They recommended that one of us transfer to a different department, or that you consider accepting a position at another company. They implied that would be the cleanest solution. They want me gone. They want the problem to go away, and you're easier to move than I am. She reached for his hand. I told them that wasn't acceptable, that you're a valuable employee who's done nothing wrong, that if they forced you out, I'd consider it wrongful termination, and we'd both lawyer up. Daniel felt something warm expand in his chest. You threatened the board for me? I told them the truth, that this investigation is about politics, not performance, that James Mitchell's complaint is retaliation, not legitimate concern, and that I won't allow them to scapegoat you because they're uncomfortable with the fact that I have personal feelings. Elena, you can't go to war with your own board. I already did, and I won. She pulled him closer. They're going to close the investigation. No policy violations. No evidence of impropriety. They'll issue a statement saying the complaint was investigated and found to be without merit. Relief flooded through Daniel so intensely he had to sit down. Really? Really? We're in the clear. Officially. She paused. But there are conditions. What conditions? You need to transfer to a different department, not leave the company, but move to a division where there's no direct reporting relationship between us. They suggested corporate strategy. It's a lateral move, same pay grade, but you'd be working on different projects. Corporate strategy. Daniel considered this. That's actually a better position than what I have now. More visibility, more interesting work. I know, which is why I pushed for it instead of letting them exile you to some dead-end role. She squeezed his hand. It's not perfect. We'll still have to be careful at work. Still can't be publicly affectionate or obviously together. But we won't have the direct conflict of interest anymore. When would this transfer happen? 2 weeks. They want it done quickly so they can put this whole mess behind them. Daniel pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. She melted against him, and he felt the tension drain from her body. We did it, he said quietly. We fought and we won. We survived, Elena corrected. But Daniel, I need you to understand something. This isn't over. People will still talk, still speculate, still watch us for any sign of impropriety. We're going to be under scrutiny for a long time. I know, and I'm okay with that. Even if it means being careful, discreet, not being able to be together the way normal couples are. We're not a normal couple. We're a CEO and an employee who fell for each other despite every logical reason not to. Nothing about this was ever going to be easy. Elena pulled back to look at him. How are you so calm about this? Aren't you angry? Frustrated? I'm relieved. 3 weeks ago, I thought we were going to lose everything. Now you're telling me we get to keep our jobs and be together? That feels like winning. You're transferring departments because of me, leaving work you're good at because we couldn't keep our relationship quiet. I'm moving to a better position because you fought for me. There's a difference. He cupped her face in his hands. Elena, stop trying to turn this into something bad. We survived. That's what matters. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I was so scared. During that interview, when they were pushing me to agree to let you go, I was terrified I'd have to choose between you and everything I've built, and I didn't know which I'd pick. What would you have chosen? You. I would have chosen you. And that scared me more than anything because I've never put a person before my career, never thought I could. But sitting there, imagining my life without you in it, I realized the career doesn't mean anything if I'm alone and miserable. Daniel kissed her softly. You're not alone anymore, and you don't have to choose. We get both. For now. But Daniel, what happens when the next crisis comes? When something else threatens this fragile balance we've created? We handle it together like we handled this one. He smiled. You know what I've learned these past 3 weeks? What? That you're even stronger than I thought. You stood up to your board for me, risked your own position to protect mine. That's not weakness, Elena. That's courage. Or stupidity. Same thing sometimes. She laughed through her tears. How do you do that? Make everything seem manageable when I'm falling apart? Because I have practice. 4 years of single parenting taught me that most crises aren't as catastrophic as they feel in the moment. You just have to breathe through them. Elena rested her forehead against his. Stay tonight? I don't want to be alone. I don't want to pretend to be strong anymore. I can't. Maya's expecting me. And I should probably tell her what's been happening before she hears about it from someone else. You're going to tell her about us? Eventually. Not all the details, but the important parts. That I've been seeing someone. That it's serious. That it might change things. He paused. Is that okay? Or is that too much, too fast? Elena's expression softened. I think it's exactly right. And Daniel, I meant what I said before about wanting to meet her. When you're ready. Maybe soon. This weekend, if you're free. Something casual. The park, maybe? Or the science museum? She's been wanting to go. I'd like that. I'm terrified, but I'd like it. She'll love you. How could she not? I have no idea how to talk to children. What if I say something wrong? What if she hates me? She won't hate you, and you don't need to perform or impress her. Just be yourself. Daniel smiled. The real you, the one who eats dark chocolate when stressed and talks to herself while working. Not the CEO version. That's even more terrifying. I know, but that's the version I fell for, and I think Maya will too. They stayed like that for a long moment, holding each other in her office while the city darkened outside the windows. Finally, reluctantly, Daniel pulled away. I should go before security starts wondering why I'm up here after hours. Probably wise. Elena walked him to the door, then grabbed his hand one more time. Thank you for not giving up, for fighting even when I tried to push you away. Thank you for being worth fighting for. Saturday morning, Daniel woke early to Maya jumping on his bed. Daddy, wake up! You promised we'd go to the science museum today. He groaned, checking his clock. 7 a.m. on a Saturday. Bug, it doesn't open until 10. I know, but we need to plan our strategy. The planetarium show fills up fast. Daniel pulled her into a hug, her excitement infectious. Okay, I'm up. But Maya, there's something I need to talk to you about first. She settled cross-legged on his bed, suddenly serious. Is this about the friend? The one you've been seeing? How did you... Daddy, you've been different, happier, and you've been going out more. It's not that hard to figure out. She tilted her head, studying him. Is it serious? Yeah, Bug, it is. Good. You deserve to be happy. She paused. Is she nice? She is. She's smart and strong and a little bit scary, and she makes me feel like I can be brave. She sounds cool. Can I meet her? Daniel took a breath. Actually, she's going to meet us at the museum today, if that's okay with you. Maya's eyes went wide. Really? Today? If you're comfortable with it, we'll just walk around, look at exhibits, get lunch. Nothing formal or weird, just 3 people hanging out. What's her name? Elena. What does she do? She works at my company. She's actually my boss. Well, she was. I'm switching departments so it's not complicated. Maya processed this. Your boss? That's kind of cool. Is she the reason you've been worried about work stuff? Daniel was continually amazed by his daughter's perception. Sort of. It's been complicated, but we figured it out. Do you love her? The question caught him off guard. I think I might. It's still new, but yeah. I think I do. Maya grinned. Then I definitely want to meet her. But Daddy? Yeah? If she's mean to you, I'm going to give her my serious face. The one that makes teachers nervous. Daniel laughed, pulling her close. Deal. But I don't think you'll need it. She's not mean. She's just careful, like me. Two careful people falling in love. That sounds like a story. Maybe it is, Bug. Maybe it is. Elena met them at the museum entrance at 10:30, looking nervous in jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. She'd clearly tried to dress casually, to be approachable, but she still had an air of elegance that drew second glances from passers-by. Maya studied her critically as they approached. "Hi," Elena said, her voice slightly higher than normal. "You must be Maya. Your dad has told me so much about you." "Hi," Maya continued her assessment. "You're pretty and tall, and you look scared." Elena blinked, then laughed, a real laugh that broke the tension. "I am scared. I've never done this before. Met someone's daughter, I'm not sure what to say. You could start by telling me if you like dinosaurs, because we're going to the paleontology exhibit first, and if you don't like dinosaurs, this might not work out." Elena crouched down to Maya's level. "I love dinosaurs, especially velociraptors. They were smart and worked in packs, and people always underestimated them because they weren't the biggest." Maya's eyes lit up. "That's my favorite too. Everyone thinks T-Rex is the best because it's huge, but velociraptors were way cooler." "Exactly. Brains over brawn." "Okay," Maya nodded decisively. "You can come with us, but you have to promise to read all the information plaques. Daddy always skips them." "I do not skip them. You skim them. It's not the same." Maya grabbed Elena's hand unselfconsciously. "Come on, the museum just opened and we need to get good spots for the planetarium show." Daniel watched his daughter lead Elena toward the entrance, chattering about dinosaurs and planets and her science fair project, and felt his chest tighten with emotion. Elena glanced back at him over her shoulder, her expression equal parts terrified and delighted, and mouthed, "Is this okay?" He nodded, smiling. More than okay. They spent 3 hours exploring the museum. Maya dragged them through every exhibit, explaining facts she'd learned and asking questions that sometimes stumped even the museum guides. Elena listened with genuine interest, asked follow-up questions, and seemed to forget entirely about being nervous. At the planetarium show, Maya sat between them, pointing out constellations and whispering facts about stars and galaxies. At one point, she reached over and grabbed both their hands, linking them together like a chain. During lunch at the museum cafe, Maya interrogated Elena with the directness only a 9-year-old could manage. "So you're my dad's boss?" "I was. Now we work in different departments." "Because you're dating?" Elena glanced at Daniel, who nodded encouragingly. "Yes, because we're dating and we wanted to make sure everything was appropriate." "That makes sense. My teacher says relationships need boundaries." Maya took a bite of her sandwich. "Do you make my dad happy?" "I try to. I hope I do." "You do. He smiles at his phone now. He never used to do that." Elena's lips quirked. "He makes me happy too. He makes me feel like I can be myself instead of always being perfect." "Nobody's perfect. That's what Daddy always tells me when I worry about grades. Your dad is very smart." "I know. He's the best." Maya studied Elena seriously. "Are you going to marry him?" "Maya!" Daniel felt his face flush. "That's not an appropriate question." "Why not? If you're dating, isn't that the point? To see if you want to get married?" Elena handled it with surprising grace. "Your dad and I are still getting to know each other. We're taking things slow. But I like him very much, and I'm glad I get to spend time with both of you." "Okay." Maya seemed satisfied with this answer. "Can we get ice cream after this? To celebrate you not being scary?" Elena laughed. "I would love ice cream." Later, after they'd walked Maya through the gift shop and gotten ice cream and finally headed home, Daniel walked Elena to her car while Maya waited on a nearby bench, absorbed in her new book about space. "Thank you for today," he said quietly, "for being so patient with her, for not freaking out when she asked if we were getting married. Are you kidding? She's amazing, smart, confident, kind. You've done an incredible job raising her." "She liked you. Really liked you. That's huge." "I liked her too. More than I expected to." Elena smiled. "I've never wanted kids. Never thought I had the time or inclination. But spending today with Maya, seeing the world through her eyes, I get it now. Why you rebuilt your entire life around being her father. She's the best thing I ever did." "She is." "And Daniel? The fact that she approves of me, that she's okay with us being together, that matters more than any board investigation or office politics. Because she's your priority, as she should be. Daniel pulled her close, not caring that they were on a public street. I love you. I should have said it before, but I'm saying it now. I love you, Elena Whitmore. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I love you too, even though it terrifies me, even though I still don't know how to balance this with everything else in my life. I love you. They kissed, soft and sweet, while Boston moved around them and Maya pretended not to watch from her bench. So what happens now? Elena asked when they pulled apart. Now you start in corporate strategy. We keep being careful at work. We figure out how to build a life together despite all the complications. He smiled. And we stop letting fear make our decisions. That's a terrible plan. You have a better one? No, not even a little bit. She kissed him again. But I'm in. Whatever comes next, I'm in. Good, because I'm not letting you go. Not now, not ever. Elena headed home, and Daniel walked back to where Maya was waiting, her book abandoned in favor of watching him with a knowing smile. You really do love her, Maya said. I really do. And she loves you back? She does. Good. You deserve someone who loves you back. She stood, taking his hand. Come on, Daddy. Let's go home. I want to work on my science project, and you promised to help with the ice rings. As they walked toward the tea station, Maya chattering about Saturn and school and how Elena was pretty cool for a grown-up, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years. Contentment. Not the careful, controlled existence he'd built after his divorce, but real, deep contentment that came from being fully alive and fully present and fully himself with people who mattered. He'd fought for this. For Elena. For the possibility of happiness despite complications. And he'd won. Not perfectly. Not without scars. But he'd won, nonetheless. And that, Daniel thought as his daughter squeezed his hand and talked about stars and ices and infinite possibilities, was enough. More than enough. It was everything. The transfer to corporate strategy happened on a Monday morning in late January. Daniel packed up his desk while his former colleagues stopped by with well wishes and knowing smiles, everyone aware of why he was moving, but polite enough not to say it outright. Jennifer hugged him tightly. You better not become one of those fancy strategy people who forgets about us regular analysts. Never. Besides, I'll still be in the same building, just 3 floors up. Well, 3 floors might as well be 3 miles in this place. She pulled back, studying his face. You look happy, Danny. Really happy. That's worth all the complications. It is. Marcus helped him carry boxes to his new office, a corner space with actual windows, a significant upgrade from his old cubicle. Moving up in the world, literally. It's just a different apartment, with better real estate and more interesting projects. Don't downplay it. You earned this. Marcus set down a box, then lowered his voice. How are things with Elena? Good. Really good. We're figuring it out. And Maya? She adores her. They went to another museum last weekend and spent 2 hours talking about ancient Egypt. I barely got a word in. Marcus grinned. That's great, man. I'm happy for you. Both of you. Daniel's new role in corporate strategy was everything Jennifer said it would be and more. He worked on high-level projects, interfaced with senior leadership, contributed to decisions that shaped the company's direction. His direct supervisor, Patricia Kim, was brilliant and demanding and had zero connection to Elena, which meant every achievement was purely his own. Within 3 months, he'd proven himself essential to the team. Within 6, Patricia was advocating for his promotion to senior strategist. You have the analytical skills and the strategic thinking, she told him during his performance review. And you're not afraid to challenge assumptions. That's rare and valuable. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. You've earned it. The promotion should go through next quarter, assuming the board approves the budget allocation. She paused. I know there was some controversy around your transfer. I want you to know that I don't care about office gossip. I care about results, and your results speak for themselves. Daniel felt a weight lift he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. For months, he'd worried that the investigation would permanently taint his reputation, that people would always question whether his success was legitimate or connected to Elena. But here was Patricia, his boss, telling him his work stood on its own merit. That night, he met Elena at her apartment for dinner, something they'd been doing twice a week, carefully scheduled around Maya's activities and Elena's board meetings. She greeted him at the door with wine and a smile. "You look pleased with yourself." "Patricia told me I'm getting promoted. Senior strategist. Real promotion, based entirely on my work." Elena's face lit up. "Daniel, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you." "I proved them wrong. Everyone who thought I was only advancing because of you, I proved them all wrong." "You proved yourself right. There's a difference." She handed him a glass of wine. "Though I have to admit, it's been torture watching you excel and not being able to say anything. Do you know how many times I've wanted to brag about your work in board meetings?" "Please don't. That would undo everything we've worked for." "I know, but it's frustrating. You're brilliant, and I can't openly acknowledge it without people assuming I'm biased." Daniel pulled her close. "You acknowledge it privately. That's enough." They'd settled into a rhythm over the past months. Careful distance at work, professional nods in hallways, no personal conversations in the office, maintaining the appearance of colleagues who happened to work in the same building. But outside work, they'd built something real. Dinners at her apartment, weekend mornings at Ember and Oak, museums and parks with Maya, quiet evenings where Elena worked on quarterly reports while Daniel helped his daughter with homework, the three of them existing in comfortable domesticity. It wasn't perfect. They couldn't be openly affectionate at company events, couldn't arrive or leave together, couldn't post photos on social media or acknowledge their relationship publicly in any way connected to work. But the alternative, not being together at all, was unthinkable. "I have something for you," Elena said, walking to her desk and retrieving a small envelope. "Open it." Inside was a key. Daniel looked at her, his heart suddenly pounding. "Elena, it's a key to this apartment, so you don't have to wait for me to let you in, so you can come and go as you please." She spoke quickly, nervously. "I know we said we'd take things slow, and this doesn't mean you have to move in or anything, but I want you to have it. Want you to feel like this is your space too. This is a big step." "I know. Too big? Too fast?" Daniel closed his hand around the key. "No, it's exactly right." He kissed her softly. "Thank you for trusting me with this. Thank you for being trustworthy, for being patient with all my fears and complications." "There are complications now. We share them." Elena rested her forehead against his. "How did I get so lucky? Finding you was like winning a lottery I didn't know I'd entered." "I think about that sometimes. What would have happened if you hadn't accidentally sent me that message? We probably would have stayed in our separate worlds, you quietly admiring me from a distance, me being lonely and telling myself it was the price of success. Instead, we got this. Instead, we got this." She smiled. "Complicated, messy, worth fighting for this." Summer arrived, and with it came Maya's 10th birthday. She'd been planning her party for weeks, a science-themed celebration at a planetarium, complete with a presentation about black holes that she'd written herself. Elena had been nervous about attending, worried about overstepping or making Maya uncomfortable. But Maya had insisted, including Elena's name on the invitation in glitter pen. The party was chaotic and wonderful. 20 kids running around asking questions and launching model rockets and eating cake decorated like the solar system. Daniel watched Elena help Maya set up her black hole presentation. The two of them deep in conversation about event horizons and gravitational pull, and felt his chest tighten with emotion. Sarah had never engaged with Maya like this, had never taken interest in her daughter's passions or encouraged her curiosity. She'd shown up to required events and smiled for photos, but had always seemed to be counting down minutes until she could leave. But Elena was fully present, asking questions, offering suggestions, looking at Maya like she was the most fascinating person in the room. After the party, after the last guest had been picked up and the planetarium staff had cleaned up, the three of them walked to a nearby ice cream shop. Maya, still buzzing with excitement, talked non-stop about her presentation and which questions she'd answered and how she thought it went. "You were brilliant," Elena said. "I learned things I didn't know, and I've read extensively about astrophysics." "Really? You're not just saying that?" "Really. That part about how time moves differently near a black hole? That was a concept I'd read about, but never fully understood until you explained it." Maya beamed. "Maybe I'll be a physicist when I grow up, or an astronaut, or both." "You can be whatever you want," Daniel said. As long as you're happy. I'm happy now. Maya looked between them. Are you two going to get married? Daniel nearly choked on his ice cream. Maya, what? It's a reasonable question. You've been dating for like 6 months. You have a key to her apartment. She comes to family things. Mom was engaged to that guy after only 3 months, and you're way better together than they ever were. Elena recovered faster than Daniel. Marriage is a big decision, Maya. Your dad and I are taking our time to make sure we're right for each other. But you love each other, right? We do, Daniel said, finding his voice. And you're happy together? Very happy. Then what are you waiting for? Maya looked at them with the practical logic of a 10-year-old. Life's short. That's what you always tell me when I'm scared to try new things, Daddy. Life's short, Bug. Try it and see what happens. Elena laughed. She makes a compelling argument. She's too smart for her own good. I'm exactly smart enough, Maya corrected, and I think you should marry Elena because she's cool and she makes you happy and she actually likes museums. Plus, she promised to help me with my science fair project next year, and I want to make sure she sticks around for that. Very practical reasoning, Elena said solemnly. The science fair project is definitely a factor to consider. After they'd walked Maya home and gotten her ready for bed, Daniel and Elena sat on his apartment's small balcony, the summer night warm around them. She's not wrong, you know, Elena said quietly, about us being good together. I know. And I have thought about it. Marriage. A future that's more than just careful scheduling and separate spaces. Daniel's heart rate picked up. Have you? Every day, I look at you and Maya and think about how my life used to be, empty and focused and successful, but lonely. And then I think about how it is now, complicated and messy but full. And I know which one I prefer. Elena, are you... I'm not proposing, she said quickly. I'm just saying that when you're ready, when the time feels right, I'll say yes. To marriage, to building a real life together, to being a family with you and Maya. Daniel pulled her close, overwhelmed. You'd want that? Really? I want everything with you, the whole complicated, beautiful mess of it, even though it means dealing with my ex-wife and parent-teacher conferences and science fair projects. Especially because of those things. They're part of who you are, part of the life you've built. And I want to be part of that life. They sat in comfortable silence, the city humming below them, both of them imagining futures that had seemed impossible just a year ago. Fall arrived, bringing with it the company's annual planning retreat, a weekend event at a resort in the Berkshires where senior leadership and key strategic contributors gathered to set direction for the coming year. Daniel had been invited as part of the corporate strategy team. Elena would be there as CEO. They discussed it extensively, agreed they could maintain professional distance for 48 hours, reminded themselves why discretion mattered. What they hadn't anticipated was being assigned to the same strategy breakout group. This is fine, Elena whispered as they took their seats. We're professionals. We can work together professionally. Absolutely. I'll just pretend you're not the woman I share an apartment with. We don't share an apartment. I'm there 4 nights a week. We share an apartment. Patricia called the meeting to order before Elena could respond. The session focused on market expansion strategies, and despite their personal relationship, Daniel and Elena found themselves on opposite sides of the debate. The European market is oversaturated, Daniel argued. We'd be better positioned focusing on emerging Asian markets where there's less competition. The European market is stable, Elena countered. Asian markets are high risk, high reward. We need balance in our portfolio. Balance means stagnation. We need growth, and growth requires calculated risk. They debated for 20 minutes, both of them bringing data and analysis, neither willing to concede points. The rest of the group watched like spectators at a tennis match. Finally, Patricia interrupted. Okay, clearly you two have strong opinions. Why don't we table this discussion and come back after we've gathered more data? During the break, Marcus pulled Daniel aside. Dude, you just argued with the CEO for 20 minutes. We were discussing strategy. You were disagreeing with her, publicly, repeatedly. She was wrong about the European market. And you told her so, in front of 15 people. Daniel paused, realizing what Marcus meant. You think I should have deferred to her because of who she is? Most people would have. But I didn't, because I respect her enough to challenge her thinking, and she respects me enough to engage with my arguments instead of pulling rank. Marcus studied him. You two are actually good together, aren't you? Like, genuinely good for each other. Yeah, we are. That night, after formal dinner and networking sessions, Daniel found Elena on the resort's terrace overlooking the mountains. You were wrong about the European market, she said without turning around. I was right, and you know it. She turned, and he saw she was smiling. Maybe, but I appreciated that you didn't back down just because I'm the CEO. Would you want me to? Never. That's one of the things I love about you. You treat me like a person, not a position, even in professional settings. Daniel moved closer. I do think Asian markets are the better play, though. And I think diversification across established and emerging markets is safer. We could compromise, pilot program in both regions, compare results. That's actually a good idea. I'll propose it tomorrow. She leaned against the railing. Do you think people noticed that we work well together? I think people noticed we disagree productively. That's different from noticing we're together. True. She was quiet for a moment. Daniel, I've been thinking. About? About next year's Christmas party, the one where all this started. What about it? I want to go with you, officially, as my date. Not hiding or pretending or maintaining careful distance. Just us, together, publicly. Daniel's breath caught. Elena, I know, it's a risk. People will talk, some will disapprove. But we've been careful for almost a year now. We've proven there's no conflict of interest, no impropriety. And I'm tired of hiding something that makes me happy. What about the board? The board will have to deal with it. We haven't violated any policies. We've been more careful than any other couple in this company. And if they have a problem with the CEO dating someone from a different department, they can update their policies to explicitly prohibit it. You're sure about this? Elena turned to face him fully. I've spent my entire life being careful, playing by unwritten rules, sacrificing personal happiness for professional success, and it made me lonely and miserable. You changed that. You made me realize that success without someone to share it with is empty. She took his hands. So yes, I'm sure. I want to stop hiding. Want to actually live instead of just existing. People will judge us. Let them. We know the truth. We know we've done nothing wrong. Daniel pulled her into his arms. Then let's do it. Let's go to that party together and let people think whatever they want to think. You're not scared? Terrified, but also excited, and tired of pretending we're not together when we're the best thing that's happened to either of us. The months between that conversation and the Christmas party felt both endless and impossibly fast. Daniel's promotion to senior strategist was approved. Elena navigated a challenging merger negotiation and came out stronger. Maya started 5th grade and announced she wanted to be an astrophysicist, astronaut, author when she grew up. And through it all, Daniel and Elena built a life together. Not perfectly, not without complications, but authentically, honestly, with full commitment to each other and to making it work. 2 weeks before the Christmas party, Sarah called. She wanted to see Maya for the holidays, something she rarely did. Daniel agreed, arranging for Maya to spend a weekend with her mother and Sarah's new husband. When Maya came back, she was quiet, thoughtful. That evening, while Daniel made dinner, she finally spoke. Mom asked if you were dating anyone. Daniel's hand stilled on the knife he was using to chop vegetables. What did you tell her? The truth. That you're with Elena and she's great and we're all really happy. Maya paused. She got weird about it. Weird how? She said I shouldn't get too attached because relationships don't last and you'll probably mess it up like you did with her. Anger flared hot in Daniel's chest. Maya, that's not true. The end of my marriage to your mother wasn't... I know, Daddy. I'm 10, not stupid. I remember how Mom was always leaving for trips and complaining about being stuck at home. I remember the fights. She looked up at him with those wise eyes that were too old for her face. She's wrong. You're not going to mess this up. You and Elena are good together. Anyone can see that. Daniel set down the knife and pulled her into a hug. Thank you for believing in us. I believe in you, and I believe in Elena, and I really believe in the three of us together. She pulled back. Are you bringing her to the party? The fancy work one. Yeah, we are. Good. Mom made me feel bad for being happy. Like I shouldn't be excited that you found someone who makes you smile. But I am excited, and I want everyone to know you're together. Even if it means dealing with gossip and people having opinions. People always have opinions. That doesn't make them right. She hugged him tighter. You've spent 10 years taking care of me and making sure I was happy. It's okay for you to be happy too, Daddy. You're allowed. The night of the Christmas party arrived cold and clear, snow falling softly across Boston. Daniel stood in his apartment adjusting his tie, a new one for a new chapter, while Maya supervised. You look fancy. Not as fancy as James Bond, but close. I'll take it. Is Elena meeting you there? No, we're going together. She's picking me up in 10 minutes. Maya's eyes widened. She's coming here? And you're arriving together? That's big, Daddy. I know. Are you scared? A little, but also ready. We've been hiding for almost a year. It's time to stop. I'm proud of you for being brave. Daniel knelt down to her level. I learned it from you, Bug. You're the bravest person I know. The buzzer rang. Elena, arriving exactly on time as always. When Daniel opened the door, his breath stopped. She wore a deep blue dress that brought out her eyes, her hair swept up to show her elegant neck. She looked like power and grace and confidence wrapped in silk. Wow, Maya said. You look like a princess, a really smart princess who runs companies. Elena laughed. Thank you, Maya. That might be the best compliment I've ever received. You guys are going to be the coolest people at the party. We'll try. Elena handed Maya a small wrapped box. This is for you, for being so understanding about sharing your dad. Maya opened it to find a necklace with a small telescope charm. It's perfect. Thank you. I figured an aspiring astrophysicist needs the right accessories. After hugs and final checks and Mrs. Chen arriving to stay with Maya, Daniel and Elena headed down to the waiting car. In the back seat, Elena reached for his hand. Ready for this? Ready to stop hiding? Absolutely. People are going to talk. Let them. We know the truth. The Harrington Building's 42nd floor looked exactly as it had a year ago. Crystal chandeliers, white roses, evergreen garlands, the same string quartet playing the same forgettable classical music. But everything felt different. When Daniel and Elena walked in together, her hand on his arm, both of them smiling, conversation didn't stop exactly. But it shifted. Heads turned. Whispers started. People noticed. Marcus spotted them first, his grin splitting his face. Well, well, look at you two making grand entrances. Is it that obvious? Elena asked. You're the CEO arriving with an employee on your arm. Yeah, it's obvious, but also kind of perfect. You look happy, both of you. Jennifer appeared, grabbing Daniel's other arm. I knew it. I called it months ago. You two are adorable. We're professionals who happen to be in a relationship, Elena corrected, but she was smiling. You're adorable professionals in a relationship, even better. Throughout the evening, people approached them with varying reactions. Some were genuinely happy. Some seemed scandalized. Some asked pointed questions about policies and appropriateness that Daniel deflected with practiced ease. But through it all, Elena stayed by his side, holding his hand, introducing him as her partner without hesitation, showing everyone that this was real and they weren't hiding anymore. Around 10, they slipped away to the terrace, the same terrace where they'd first been honest with each other a year ago. We did it, Elena said, leaning against the railing. We survived our public debut. Was it as bad as you thought? Actually, no. Most people seemed happy for us. And the ones who weren't, I realized I don't care what they think. She turned to face him. I spent so many years worrying about perception, about what people thought, about maintaining the perfect professional image. And tonight I realized that image was empty. This is real. Daniel moved closer. Do you remember what you said to me on this terrace? That first night? I said a lot of things. I was terrified and rambling. You said you wanted someone to see you, not the title or the success, just Elena. I remember. I still see you every day. The woman who talks to herself while working, who gets excited about quarterly reports and Maya's science projects in equal measure, who's brave enough to run a company but scared of ice skating, Who made me believe that taking risks could lead to something beautiful? Elena's eyes were bright with emotion. You made me believe that success doesn't mean being alone, that I could have both, the career and the connection. You gave me permission to be whole instead of fragmented. We gave each other permission. She reached into her small clutch and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I found something while cleaning out old files. Want to see? Daniel unfolded it, recognizing the format immediately. It was her original Christmas wish list, the one she'd accidentally sent him a year ago. Dark chocolate truffles, leather notebook, weekend in Maine, someone to look at her the way Daniel did, cashmere scarf, one honest conversation. I've thought about this list a lot, Elena said, about what I was really wishing for that night. And I wasn't wishing for things. I was wishing for connection, for someone to see me, for permission to be human instead of perfect. She took the list back, holding it carefully. And then I accidentally sent it to you, the one person who could give me all of that. You think it was an accident? Honestly, I think some part of me knew what I was doing, knew that sending it to you was a risk worth taking. Daniel pulled her close. Best accident that ever happened. Agreed. She kissed him softly. Daniel, I need to tell you something. What? Maya asked me last week if we were going to get married. She asks me that approximately once a week. What did you tell her? I told her that when her father was ready to ask, I'd be ready to say yes. Daniel's heart stopped. Elena, I'm not rushing you. I'm just telling you that I'm all in, completely. Whenever you're ready to take that step, I'll be there. Daniel thought about the ring he'd bought 3 weeks ago, the one currently hidden in his sock drawer waiting for the right moment. About how he'd been planning to propose on New Year's Eve, but suddenly couldn't wait that long. What if I'm ready now? Elena's eyes widened. Now? Well, not this exact second. I don't have the ring with me, but soon. Very soon. How soon? Is tomorrow too soon? She laughed, tears spilling down her cheeks. Tomorrow is perfect. But Daniel, you don't have to. I want to. I've wanted to for months. I was just waiting for the right time. But being here with you, on this terrace where everything started, this feels like the right time. But you don't have the ring. Daniel kissed her, cutting off her practical objections. When he pulled back, he said, I don't need the ring to tell you that I love you, that I want to spend my life with you, that I want to build a family with you and Maya, that I choose you completely and without reservation. I choose you too, Elena whispered. I choose all of this. The complications and the joy and the beautiful, messy reality of being with you. They stood there, holding each other while snow fell around them and the city glowed below. A year ago, they'd been two lonely people scared to reach for connection. Now they were partners building something real together. We should go back inside, Elena said eventually. People will talk if we're both missing. Let them talk. We're not hiding anymore, remember? True, she smiled. Though I should probably make an appearance. CEO duties and all that. Go. I'll follow in a few minutes. Maintain some plausible deniability. We just arrived together and held hands all evening. There's no plausible deniability left. Fair point. They walked back inside together, and Daniel watched Elena move through the crowd, confident, powerful, commanding attention effortlessly. But when she glanced back at him over her shoulder, he saw the real woman underneath the CEO mask. The one who was scared and brave in equal measure. The one who'd chosen him despite every logical reason not to. His phone buzzed. A text from Maya, who was supposed to be asleep. Mrs. Chen is snoring. Did you propose yet? Daniel typed back. How do you know I'm going to propose? Because you bought a ring last month and hid it in your sock drawer. I'm not blind, Daddy. Shouldn't you be asleep? Shouldn't you be getting engaged? Tomorrow. I'm proposing tomorrow. Finally. I've been waiting forever. Can I help plan the wedding? We haven't even gotten engaged yet. Details. I'm going to be the best flower girl ever, or maybe junior bridesmaid. I need to research which is more age appropriate. Go to sleep, Bug. Love you, Daddy. Tell Elena I love her too, and that I approve. Daniel pocketed his phone, smiling. Tomorrow he'd propose. Tomorrow he'd make this official. Tomorrow he'd start building the future he'd been too scared to imagine just a year ago. But tonight, he'd celebrate how far they'd come. From an accidental message to this, standing in a room full of people who knew about their relationship and celebrating rather than hiding. Elena found him again, slipping her hand into his. What are you thinking about? Tomorrow, and all the tomorrows after that. Good thoughts? The best thoughts. They stayed at the party for another hour, talking to colleagues and board members and friends, no longer separate entities but a couple. When they finally left, walking out into the snowy night together, Daniel felt something shift into place. This was real. This was his life now. Not the careful, controlled existence he'd built after his divorce, but something messy and complicated and absolutely worth fighting for. The next evening, Daniel took Elena and Maya to Holloway Park, the place where he and Elena had first been honest about their feelings. He told Elena he wanted to go skating, a casual outing that wouldn't raise suspicion. What he hadn't told her was that he'd arranged for the park to string extra lights around the pond, that he'd asked the park staff to play specific music over the sound system, that he had the ring in his coat pocket, growing heavier with each step. Maya knew, of course. She'd helped him plan, bouncing with barely contained excitement. We should skate to the middle of the pond, Maya suggested with exaggerated casualness. The ice is really good there. Elena looked suspicious. Maya, you're being weird. I'm never weird. I'm appropriately enthusiastic about ice skating. They made their way to the center of the frozen pond, the three of them holding hands in a chain. Around them, families skated and children laughed and the lights twinkled against the winter sky. Daniel stopped, turning to face Elena while Maya skated a discreet distance away, far enough to give them space, close enough to witness. Elena, do you remember what I told you on this pond a year ago? You told me a lot of things. I told you we should see what happens when two lonely people decide to stop being lonely together. I remember. We stopped being lonely. We became partners, a team, a family. He reached into his pocket, his heart hammering, and I want to make that permanent. Elena's hands flew to her mouth as Daniel dropped to one knee on the ice, pulling out the ring, a simple, elegant band with a single stone that caught the light perfectly. Elena Whitmore, you changed my life. You made me brave when I'd forgotten how to be. You loved my daughter like she was your own. You fought for us when it would have been easier to walk away. And you made me believe that taking risks could lead to something extraordinary. His voice cracked with emotion. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down Elena's face. Yes, yes, absolutely yes. Daniel stood, sliding the ring onto her finger, and kissed her while Maya cheered and families around them applauded. The moment was perfect, not because it was flawless, but because it was real. Two people who'd been too scared to reach for happiness, choosing each other completely. When they finally pulled apart, Maya skated over and threw her arms around both of them. Finally! Do you know how hard it's been keeping this secret? Elena laughed through her tears. You knew? I helped plan it. Obviously, someone had to make sure Daddy didn't mess it up. I wouldn't have messed it up. You wanted to propose in the apartment, Daddy. That's boring. This is way better. Elena looked at Daniel. You wanted to propose in the apartment? I was nervous. Maya convinced me this would be more meaningful. She was right. Elena pulled Maya into a hug. Thank you for looking out for your dad. Thank you for making him happy and for promising to help with my science fair project. That's still happening, right? Absolutely. We're family now. We help each other with science fair projects. Maya beamed. Can I call you Mom, or is that weird? Elena's eyes filled with fresh tears. You can call me whatever feels right to you, but I'd be honored to be your mom, if you want that. I want that. My biological mom isn't really interested in being a mom, but you are. So yeah, I want that. They stood in the middle of the frozen pond, the three of them holding each other while the world moved around them. A year ago, Daniel had been a lonely single father, convinced his life would always be small and safe. Elena had been a successful CEO, wondering if achievement was worth the cost of connection. Now they were a family, imperfect, complicated, absolutely real. As they skated back toward the edge of the pond, Elena leaned close to Daniel. I can't believe this is my life now. Good different or bad different? The best different. A year ago, I didn't know what I was missing. Now I can't imagine life without this, without you, without Maya, without the beautiful chaos of actually living instead of just existing. No regrets? Not one. She squeezed his hand. Though I do have one request. What's that? Can we get married quickly? I don't want a huge production, just something small and meaningful with the people who matter. How quickly? Is next month too soon? Daniel laughed. The CEO who plans everything 5 years in advance wants to get married in a month? I've spent my whole life planning and being careful. I'm done waiting. I want to be your wife and Maya's mother and actually start our life together. Why delay? No reason at all. He kissed her. Next month it is. Maya, skating ahead of them, called back. Can I wear a blue dress? And can we have a telescope cake? Anything you want, Bug. Then this is going to be the best wedding ever. They spent the rest of the evening skating and planning and dreaming about futures that had seemed impossible just a year ago. When they finally left the park, tired and happy and covered in snow, Daniel felt something settle deep in his chest. Contentment. Not the fragile, careful kind that could shatter with one wrong move, but the solid, permanent kind that came from choosing courage over fear. He'd taken a risk on an impossible connection, had fought for something that terrified him, had chosen to live fully instead of safely, and it had given him everything. 5 weeks later, on a Saturday afternoon in late February, Daniel and Elena were married in a small ceremony at the Boston Public Library. 50 people gathered, close friends, family, colleagues who'd become friends through the journey. Maya served as maid of honor, wearing the blue dress she'd requested and giving a speech that made everyone laugh and cry in equal measure. Marcus was Daniel's best man, Jennifer officiated, and Patricia Kim attended with a knowing smile that suggested she'd suspected their relationship long before it became public. The ceremony was simple but meaningful. No elaborate decorations or expensive productions. Just two people promising to choose each other, to fight for each other, to build a life together despite complications. When Elena walked down the aisle, not escorted by her distant parents but walking confidently on her own, Daniel felt his breath catch. She wore a simple cream dress that was somehow both elegant and understated, carrying flowers Maya had helped choose. She reached the front, took his hands, and smiled. Ready for this? I've been ready since the moment you accidentally sent me that message. Best accident of my life. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves. Elena promised to see him, really see him, every day for the rest of their lives. To be brave when fear tempted her to retreat. To build a family with him and Maya that was based on honesty and love and mutual respect. Daniel promised to challenge her, to push her to be more than just her title, to stand beside her as an equal partner, to love her daughter as his own, and to never let success matter more than connection. When they kissed, officially married, the small crowd erupted in applause. Maya threw flower petals with enthusiastic abandon. Marcus wolf whistled, and Daniel felt like his heart might burst with joy. At the reception, held in the library's courtyard under string lights and late winter stars, Elena gave a speech that left half the guests in tears. A year ago, I sent an accidental text message to a man I barely knew. I'd meant it for myself. A private wish list of things I thought I'd never have. Connection. Honesty. Someone who saw me as more than a title. She found Daniel in the crowd. And then Daniel showed up. He saw my message, and instead of ignoring it or treating it like a mistake, he saw it as an opportunity, an opening, a chance to be brave. She paused, emotion catching in her voice. He taught me that success doesn't mean being alone, that choosing courage over fear leads to extraordinary things. That love, real love, is worth fighting for even when it's complicated. She raised her glass. To my husband, who makes me brave. To my daughter, who makes me better. And to all of you who fought alongside us or celebrated with us, or simply believed this impossible thing could work. Thank you for being part of our story. Daniel stood, pulling her into a kiss while their guests cheered. Later, they danced. Elena in his arms, Maya standing on his feet like she had when she was little, the three of them moving together while snow began to fall outside the glass ceiling. Happy? Elena asked. Impossibly happy. Me too. Though I have to admit the logistics of being married to someone in the same company are going to be interesting. We'll figure it out. We always do. True. And if anyone has a problem with the CEO being married to a senior strategist, they can take it up with HR. We've done everything by the book. Well, maybe not everything. Daniel grinned. That first coffee was definitely not by the book. The best things never are. Maya tugged on Elena's dress. Can we have cake now? I want to see the telescope design. Yes, we can have cake, but first I have something for you. Elena produced a small wrapped box from seemingly nowhere. I wanted to give you this earlier, but the moment didn't feel right. It feels right now. Maya opened it to find a silver bracelet with 3 charms: a telescope, a heart, and a tiny book. The telescope is for your dreams, Elena explained. The heart is for our family. And the book is for all the stories we're going to write together. Maya threw her arms around Elena, hugging her fiercely. Thank you, Mom. Elena's eyes filled with tears at the word. Still new, still precious, still a gift she'd never expected to receive. Thank you for letting me be your mom. They cut the cake, 3 tiers decorated with stars and galaxies and a tiny telescope on top, and Daniel felt the rightness of this moment settle into his bones. This was his family, his life, the beautiful, messy reality he'd chosen over safety. Later, when most of the guests had left and Maya was dancing with Marcus, while Jennifer took photos, Elena pulled Daniel aside. I have something to tell you. Should I be worried? No, but it's big. She took a breath. The board offered me a position on the National Advisory Council. It's a huge opportunity, influencing policy, shaping industry standards, working with other CEOs across the country. Elena, that's amazing. It would mean travel, a lot of travel, at least a week every month, sometimes more. She looked uncertain. I told them I needed to discuss it with my husband before accepting. Daniel felt warmth spread through his chest at the word husband. What do you want to do? Honestly, I want to take it. It's the kind of opportunity that comes once in a career, but not if it destroys our family. Not if it means missing Maya's school events or never being home. Then we'll make it work. We'll plan around your travel. Maya and I will visit you sometimes. You'll video call for important school stuff. It won't be perfect, but it'll be real. You're sure? You wouldn't resent me for being away so much? I'd resent you more for turning down something you want because you're afraid. That's not who we are anymore, Elena. We're brave now. We choose what we want and figure out the complications later. She kissed him. How did I get so lucky? We both got lucky. We found each other despite terrible odds, and we fought for it when most people would have walked away. Best fight of my life. Mine too. The last guests finally departed around midnight, leaving just Daniel, Elena, and Maya in the now quiet library courtyard. They sat together on a bench, Maya between them, all 3 exhausted and happy. This was the best day ever, Maya announced. Even better than my birthday. Even better than the planetarium party? Elena asked. Way better, because today we became official. A real family. We've been a real family for a while now, Bug, Daniel said. I know, but now it's legal. Now if anyone asks, I can say this is my mom and dad, and it's true. Elena pulled her close. It's been true for months. The wedding just made it official. They sat in comfortable silence, watching snow fall through the glass ceiling, the 3 of them warm and content despite the winter cold. Daniel thought about the accidental message that had started everything, about the terrace conversation and the investigation and the countless moments of fear and doubt, about choosing courage over safety, connection over isolation, love over loneliness. And he thought about how none of it had been perfect or easy or uncomplicated, but it had been worth it. Every terrifying moment, every difficult conversation, every choice to fight rather than flee, because it had led to this. To Elena beside him wearing his ring and his name, to Maya calling Elena mom and meaning it, to a future that was messier and more complicated and infinitely more beautiful than anything he could have planned. A year ago, Elena had wished for someone to look at her the way Daniel did, openly, without hiding it. Now, sitting in the library with snow falling and his family beside him, Daniel realized that wish had been mutual. He'd needed someone to see him too, to push him to be brave. To remind him that life was meant to be lived fully, not just survived carefully. They'd given each other that gift, the gift of being seen, being chosen, being loved despite complications. And that, Daniel thought as Maya yawned against his shoulder and Elena laced her fingers through his, was worth more than any carefully planned life could ever be. They sat together in the quiet courtyard until Maya fell asleep, then carried her out to the waiting car, ready to go home together as a family. The impossible had become real. The accidental had become intentional. The fear had become courage. And in the heart of Boston, on a snowy February night, 3 people who'd all been lonely in different ways chose each other completely. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything.